Welcome, everybody. Only 2 days left to buy Google Glass. Welcome, I'm Dan McDermott, the host of this program. Completely unqualified, but I thought of it first, so here we are. Okay, so we're going to begin our program with a quick round robin here. We have Vic and Dotra on the right. Welcome, Vic. How are you? Peter McDermott filling in for Vic. It's the glasses. Pam Adger will be joining us shortly. Michael Ellis is on the screen. Welcome, Michael. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm very well, Dan. Nice to be here.
A classic early American version of the champagne glass. And Alan Furstenberg is here. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, Dan.
Okay, so the news broke about Google Glass, and the headlines were fantastic. The big fail on this was that this leaked from a Dow Jones Newswire thing that shaped the debate. It was actually accurate. It said glass is being pulled from the Glass Explorer project is closing, and that it's being taken over. It's going to become under the purview of the co-founder of Nest, which was acquired by Google. He is the guy who invented the iPod, so former Apple guy. So the stories range from a friend of a guy I know on Twitter, a venture capitalist, said, Google Glass over, huge fail. And then I saw a story on one of the sites that said the inventor of the iPod may not even be able to save glass. And then then I went to AP, the Associated Press. I figured they would be right down the middle, right? It'd be a nice, unbiased story. So here's the first paragraph here of the AP story. First sentence: Google will stop selling its internet-connected eyewear to consumers until the company can develop a more polished and affordable version that's less likely to be viewed as a freakish device. And then Nate Swanner emailed me. Nate Swanner, one of our founding panelists for Our Android
can't
Week.
wait to hear what Nate has to say.
Nate said, let me pull it up here. I think I can conceal his email, right? Yeah. Okay. So Nate said, please do be sure to ask Dr. Furstenberg what crow tastes like. # through glass. So anyway, what is the real deal here, Alan?
What
I thought
crow tastes like? Gee, let me think about that for a moment.
But it was a nice with the
So a
through glass
product is
thing.
so successful that they're able to convince people to pay money for the research and development, and now it's leaving research and development, and where is it going? Where is it going? It's going to the consumer product division.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah, that sure seems like a failure to me.
didn't the Nexus Q linger there briefly?
No, the Nexus Q lingered nowhere briefly.
Some people actually bought it, so I don't think people were willing to pay for it. That's a pretty low barrier, a low bar to entry.
This is preposterous, though. that people are making the argument. I mean, these are Google haters who are saying this, that the product has failed, and that's what that
I don't
Google's
know.
trying scrambling for some way to resurrect it.
I heard Guy Kawasaki talking about it today in negative light. And, this is Guy Kawasaki, who in theory actually,
I think he's
knows
paid by
something about
Google. Isn't he a paid evangelist?
not for Google.
I thought he was, or for Motorola. But I
He
guess
was
that's
for
no longer.
Motorola for a while.
So I saw Zuckerberg like a couple weeks just a few days ago. He was mentioning it, and he said like as these things evolve, they're not going to look so weird. I think that's the thing, I'm a Google fanboy, but like you, I'll call them out when I think they're being stupid. But I would not feel comfortable walking around the grocery store with that thing on. I think people would think I was stalking them or something. And Cadeas offered me, I got offered an invite by Cadeas very early on, and I said no way, But I think Peter, you're in it, and Alan, obviously, you literally co-wrote the book. So what do you think? Is this the first step toward burying it without saying so initially, or is
No,
this, you think
no.
it's going to come out? And is my theory correct that we're going to see industrial use like police and medical before we see an affordable consumer version?
Well, let me answer. Okay, two answers to that. First of all, I think Cadeas, and I wish he was here, had the absolute best answer about whether this is Google trying to bury it. We've seen how Google buries products before. We've seen how they try to make things disappear. Totally different than how they try to make than what they're doing with Glass.
That
It's a
said, nobody spent $1,500 to use Google Reader. This is a different thing, right?
It's different, but if they wanted
That's
it,
not really.
but Dan, here's
That's
the thing.
not really
If they wanted Glass to go away, they just pulled the plug on it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. That's not how they bury things.
They've got no problem in just pulling the plug on things.
And this guy I mean, I think I said in our private chat earlier today or yesterday, whenever it was, that this guy is probably the best consumer hardware designer out there next to Jonathan Ive at Apple, I would say. I mean, if anybody can fix it, like when Bezos bought the Washington Post, if anybody can fix it.
I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't even come close to saying that. I think he blows Johnny Ive out of the water. I think Johnny Ive is all hat, no cattle.
So you do agree this guy has game.
Which is a commonly heard phrase in New York, I want to point out.
It's more common than your champagne glass. All right, so
that's your
go ahead,
second
Alan.
point about whether we're going to see this in industry use before we see a consumer version. Yes and no. I mean, I think certainly the fact that the Glass at Work program is continuing. It's not that you won't be able to buy Glass anymore, because you'll still be able to buy Glass through the Glass at Work program. You'll be able to do that indefinitely from what I'm getting from my Glass at Work contacts.
So this gets back to my first observation
What?
was this was a PR fail the way this leaked instead of a post, and I have to, for bragging rights, the post that they actually did put out an hour after I suggested what they should say almost mirrored exactly what I said they should say.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that this got out in an unexpected way. The people I was talking to literally said, things like, "Oh, that got out sooner than we expected," and these are the people who are in charge of getting messages out.
There's no reason more than a dozen people had to know about this. This
No, sure
shouldn't
there
have
is.
leaked.
I mean, you've got several thousand Glass Explorers who deserve to know about this.
No, what I'm saying is they should have written the script themselves. The announcement should have come from a nice post, a video of the Nest guy, maybe some humor and some slick music, the way Google's ad
I
people
think this,
do, and not from Dow Jones Wire.
I honestly think this was an actual unintended leak. That
Clearly
it wasn't
it
a
was.
plan, which, sometimes these things are. This was a leak. As for your point, again, going back to your point, though, about whether we're going to see industrial versions of Glass before we see consumer versions of Glass, I think it's clear to me that what this signals is that they're still very dedicated to a consumer version of Glass. They're transferring it to essentially a guy who does consumer products.
And he's really good.
Right.
But the industrial is so much more obvious. For example, like a police officer, we're talking about body cams. Well, a body cam, police officers wear all kinds of crazy stuff. It wouldn't be at all odd. And some of the cops do have cameras here, and soldiers have for years on their eyewear. But instead of a cam that records stuff for after the fact, they literally could have monitors in the dispatch center monitoring in real time the cameras on the cops with this kind of approach, as opposed to, there's all kinds, and the medical, someone advising someone on open heart surgery and they're looking, that kind of thing.
Here's the thing. I've heard a lot of people make this argument that the commercial uses for this are more obvious than the consumer uses for this. And honestly, I think that's bullshit. The uses for them is equal in my mind. Yes, I can certainly see consumer versions of this. I've got clients who are using it in industry. That said, I also know people who are using it in their lives. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable approach to use it in one's personal life. Obviously, I've been doing it for almost 2 years now.
I want to get Kevin on this, but just a reminder, Alan, if you're watching this show for the first time, Alan Furstenberg wrote with Jason Salas a book for O'Reilly Media. You should check it out. It's called Designing and Developing for Google Glass. And I think the book is available at the Smithsonian Institute of Early American History. But check it out. It's a good book. I actually bought the book and understand the intro chapter very well. So, Kevin, what do you think about this? So, how did you first? What was your first reaction when you saw it? What kind of headline did you get? Because they were all over the map. What did you think, Kevin?
Well, the impression that I got first of all was the feeling that I got, which was that finally I'm seeing some kind of progress on the outer side of things. I definitely knew that Google Glass wasn't going away, but it wasn't clear to me what they were trying to do with it. And so that was the biggest thing that I saw about this. That's why it was a big deal to me. I can now see what it is they're trying to do.
I had the same perception, Kevin, that they were sort of the period where they're just putting it out there and getting feedback went on a little bit too long. But maybe Alan can correct that perception because he's more intimately involved with the team.
Yeah, that was really the feeling I got. I mean, it's definitely well. Usually, when a product comes out, let me say it this way. Usually, when a product comes out, you hear about it. Okay, it's in alpha, it's in beta, it's coming out. Here it is. And there seemed like even though Google didn't hype it up, there was a lot of excitement around it that hyped it up more than really Google felt probably that it could deliver. And at the same time, it's not Google's fault that it got that kind of press. It also didn't do anything to manage expectations. So,
sorry, before I accidentally kill my window for a third time, I want to kind of address that because some of that is the nature of where it was located, the fact that it was part of the Google X project, and not part of a consumer product division. So basically, the fact that there wasn't a clear goal in mind, the fact that they were kind of poking around and taking their time about trying one thing, then trying another thing, then taking months to get something working. It was clear they were part of a division that wasn't focused on deadlines, that was focused on throwing something against the wall, seeing if it worked, and if it worked, great, and if it didn't work, yank it out and try it again. Internally, we saw a lot of changes that were frustrating to developers. We saw a lack of progress on things that was frustrating to both developers and users. But that's the nature of being part of a research lab.
Yeah,
when you kick it out of the research lab, you now put it in a division where they have to do things like sell it and sell upgrades to it and keep it updated and modern and all of that stuff. And that's more suited for a consumer product division than a research division.
Kevin, hang on one sec. I'm going to do a quick comment from George Cozy in the Netherlands, our buddy. Glass didn't look weird. Granted, the unibrow look has a goofy thing about it, but so did every prototype ever made.
Yeah, it's not really a failure of Google X, and it's not really a failure even on the developers or even the users or anything like that. It was a failure of, Google's pitiful PR department. That's really what it is. Because because all they really needed to do was push together something that gave the message to the public that this is to tell them exactly what Alan just said, that it's not ready for prime time. They kind of said it, but
Kevin,
they needed to.
No, Kevin, it's not that they kind of said that. They said that multiple times.
But that still didn't get across the public. I'm talking about print. I'm talking about TV. I'm talking about they don't know how to do a real push in that department. They really don't.
No, I'm sorry. Here's what I don't. Go, Pam.
Go ahead, Pam.
I don't think that they really wanted a crap load of people buying it.
They didn't, but they needed to warn people away from that idea in a big way.
But they did.
Not in a way that hit a lot of people in the public.
And the
out there.
And the media perception, kind of, the stories were about, oh, chick gets pulled over for using glass while driving, and dude gets kicked out of the movie theater for using glass. New York restaurants ban glass. Google board meetings ban glass. It was all negative. We didn't get a whole
and the last
lot of
thing that just
Those
happened,
stories-
what they should have done is they should not have had this leak. They should have minimized the number of people who knew until they did the announcement. The Nest guy and Sergey Brin should have been on like CBS This Morning today or something, talking about how excited they are that this has graduated to a new level and the future of it, that sort of thing. And it should have just been handled so differently than these stories, total fail, they're ending the glass project, all this stuff, which isn't accurate. Now, I assume it's not accurate, but, I assume that they're going to put out a consumer version. And God, I'm just so glad that Jason and Alan didn't get an early prototype of the Q and spend 2 years writing a freaking book on the Nexus Q. Can you imagine? Show me the nearest bridge,
Here's the thing.
cabbie.
The Q, there's nothing very interesting. There was nothing. Glass is revolutionary. The Q wasn't revolutionary. It was just evolutionary. The Chromecast is evolutionary. The Android TV takes a step backwards. The glass is revolutionary. Glass is trying to do things that nobody else was doing. And I think the proof of that is you look at CES and you see how many people are imitating glass. And poorly, I might add.
Well, absolutely. Glass is revolutionary, but that's not the story that made it. The only thing I'm saying is that's not the story that most people heard who weren't there, who weren't following it. The story most people heard was that someone got arrested,
No, Kevin.
or someone got. But that's what I'm saying. That's the story. It's not even. You see, but you hear what I said about being arrested. People didn't even get arrested, but that's the message
But
that
here's
got
the thing,
across.
Kevin.
One guy got detained in a movie theater.
Right.
Here's the thing. I'm not sure that that's the message that comes across. I think that might be the message that you picked up. But when I talk to people about glass, or when people see me wearing glass and ask questions, they say things like, yeah, I saw that on Good Morning America. Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if it did this? Yeah, wouldn't it? And occasionally they'll say, hey, didn't somebody get a ticket for using glass while driving? But usually they say that in the context of me saying, yeah, I use it to send text messages while I drive.
They should have done more positive PR. Don't let
They did!
They didn't do enough.
I don't know. They should have had they should have been on the Today Show with the cop coming out of a police car and he's got his glass on. He's walking up to the car. There's a live feed of the video going to the station.
Hey, Dan,
It didn't make the news. I didn't see it.
Dan, I've got this perfect vision of one. You've got this guy who wears glass and he's a firefighter, and you see him using glass to figure out where the fire is and how does that sound? Does that sound like a really cool thing?
Was it all vaporware?
No, it wasn't vaporware. It was fucking working. The guy was doing it.
Okay.
There's a 2-minute YouTube video on it. How much press did it get? Next to none.
Okay. I still think that
The
industrial
fact
use is the way
the
it's going to
fact is the media
emerge.
doesn't care about the good stories. All they cared about were the negative stories.
That's.
Yeah.
I
And there was
don't
a record
recall.
load of good stories that the press just decided to ignore.
But that's the same in everything.
that's the job of
why
the PR
companies
department.
need
Right.
marketing departments.
Exactly.
Right. That's why you need a PR department to
Marketing
handle
department
it.
did this.
But they didn't do enough. They
How
didn't do
did
enough.
You know what? I don't know.
The reason I
Take
say
the guy out
Or they
to
didn't do
lunch.
it
I
well.
don't know.
The reason I say is that you're getting positive feedback.
Exactly, Pam.
Everyone around me had negative feedback about that. That's what I'm saying. The message got out, but it didn't get out to everyone. They really needed to blanket the media and oversaturate with the experimental side of it and make it seem like SpaceX. Everyone understands that SpaceX is not going to be something that can work.
Really?
Dude, Kevin,
No,
nobody freaking knows who SpaceX is.
But I'm saying
Nobody.
All of my
people-
friends inside the Beltway know. And all of Alan's friends like glass.
I'm not saying everyone needs to know about SpaceX, but if people hear about SpaceX, they understand that it's an experiment. With Google Glass, the message has not gotten out to
No, they
everyone
don't.
that
They
it's an
think that these are
experiment.
the guys that NASA hired to send stuff to the space station.
That's not what I'm hearing with the people around me. I'm telling you, that's not the.
Most people I know that have heard of SpaceX at all, which is fewer than the number of people who have heard of Glass, think that they're a NASA subcontractor.
A quick comment from George. Let's call it as it is. Google sucks at PR. It's like it lacks something essential when it comes to talking to non-geeks. Their fondness for Easter eggs is proof enough.
And you know what?
I can't believe Alan. I can't believe you're the one defending the Google
I
PR
can't
department.
believe it either.
Why are you doing that?
The reason why is because this is a case
He wants
where
to sell
I
his
actually
book.
saw them. This is a case where I actually saw them putting videos out every week, talking to the press, talking to the media, getting the word out
Well,
there.
but Alan,
and
but it's
I'll
not fair,
agree.
Alan,
And I'll
because
agree,
you
there
were
was
looking for those things.
No,
No,
I
he
wasn't looking for
wasn't.
those
He
things.
wasn't. No, they have been doing it. I'm saying they needed to do more. What they need? In my opinion, they needed to do way more mainstream stuff. Like go in the middle of like Big Bang Theory and put a 60-second ad.
Pay for an ad.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Put a 60-second ad right in the middle of Big Bang Theory saying
so put
this is a cool.
60-second ad for
Yeah.
a product that's not for sale.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Show how it's an experiment. Absolutely, because the story has now gotten out past them.
Now,
And now-
let me addend to
stories-
that. They did do ads, though, Kevin. They did them on YouTube, which reaches the millennials and the kids, but it doesn't reach the journalists at the Washington Post
Any
and
of
the
us.
Wall Street Journal and any old white guys who are, the senators and the congressmen and congresswomen. That doesn't
Well,
that's
okay.
not effective
Any
for
of
them.
us plus Pam plus Kevin.
Yeah, and so who cares about them?
No, but
No, I'm saying
they're
the
still
opinion
friends.
makers, the people on TV who are,
They're not the opinion makers.
they're
They're not the opinion makers.
I
but
think when a venture capitalist
still
in
in debt.
California says huge fail, they've just pulled Glass. When Drudge Report puts out Google dumps Glass, had Drudge Report seen the fireman video and a cop coming out of his cop car, and as he's walking up to the car, Glass detects that the guy's wanted in 3 states, the car's stolen, and he's got a concealed weapons permit.
How many 18-year-olds who know who Drudge is or care?
that's
But
not
it
the
doesn't
pro- I mean,
matter what
No,
18-year-olds
that's exactly
think.
the point.
It doesn't matter
No,
what 18-year-olds
you
think.
have
They're
to-
not setting the news agenda. They're not writing the
Who
stories
fucking
that people are
cares if they're
reading.
setting the news agenda? They're
Legis-
setting the spending agenda.
legislation is getting
just wanna
made
give
as well.
Alan a Jolt Cola
Legislation
and
is getting
watch.
made by people who have no clue, and they need people in their districts who will push back in those specific areas against those laws, and those people do get reached by the Big Bang Theory. So legislatively, it will make a bit of a difference. If you saturate with that experiment news, it will reach the people who can actually affect those local legislative rules that you don't want to have happen. That's all I'm saying.
But who, I
They
don't
need
think that
they
they're.
need a campaign that's like BASF, right? Where we don't make the products you love, we make the products you love work better, or so whatever it is they say.
Yeah.
But it's clear that nobody's buying anything from BASF, but everybody knows who they are,
Right.
and
Right.
that's the
And
sort
nobody
of ad
cares.
saturating the market. Okay, nobody cares, but the point is here we have to combat a negative impression of a product that's not even available to buy yet in
But here's the
quantity.
thing, I don't think it has a negative impression.
The Associated Press,
I
the Associated
It
Press
does.
in
It
San
does.
Francisco, okay, Google was, this is the first sentence. I go back to this. Google will stop selling its internet-connected eyewear, and my phone just went off because I said Google. This is so frustrating.
Dan,
Google,
what's the dateline of that article?
this is January 15, 4:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by Michael, unpronounceable last name, Liedkey or
Which
something.
bureau?
San Francisco Bureau.
San Francisco Bureau. Forget it. See, there's the thing. All of the reporting is coming out of San Francisco, which has never liked glass.
This is the number. I mean, this is AP. It's bigstory.ap.org/garbage.
I'm not debating that. I'm not debating that. But what I'm saying is, if you want to go someplace, the one place in the nation that seems to not like glass is San Francisco.
So Google PR should make a fluff piece of Glass versus San Francisco, and try to come up with some kind of
because Google has that much effort to spend on getting people in San Francisco to like Glass,
It's
as opposed to getting them to like Google.
it's not to get San Francisco to like Glass. It's to get people who look at the situation in San Francisco to think favorably about Glass. San Francisco will never love Glass, but people who look at San Francisco can look at them and see that they're ridiculous. And Google PR can help in that.
San Francisco is not a microcosm of America.
Yeah,
And
they're
and-
not.
and they're not. There's
most
literally
people know
people
that.
protesting in the streets.
Right, they're not,
know.
but they're where all the tech reporting is coming from.
So we all agree. Anything else on this? This huge win for Google today? Okay. A quick aside. Let me add something that I don't even have a link for. I don't think it's in there. But speaking, just because we're talking about innovation, it's not even a Google topic. But this Elon Musk had tweeted that they're going to do a test of the Hyperloop, or whatever the hell it's called, and probably in Texas, and they're going to invite universities and companies and anybody who's qualified to test pods and stuff. I think it's so awesome, and also my first thought was that this is probably, if it works, will be the biggest thing Elon Musk has ever done, bigger than SpaceX, bigger than Tesla, bigger than PayPal, of course, but he's giving it away. He's open sourcing it. He just put the plans out there, and he's actually going to spend his own money to make the thing. And I just think, my God, this is so awesome. Any thoughts on this, just randomly? But
I'm still waiting to see how the Hyperloop gets powered by the screams of its passengers. There was an article out by The Onion that said that that's how it would get powered. It would get powered by the screams of the people who were on it about how fast they were going.
I'm not going to be the first person to test. I will not be in the Hyperloop Pod Explorer passenger project.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would do that.
I don't get
Powered by
what's so revolutionary about a pneumatic tube that holds people. That there's just
Powered
something
by the
that's not-
screams of the passengers. Sorry, Alan. Go ahead.
No, I'm still having trouble understanding what's so exciting about a pneumatic tube. I'm sorry, this is not new technology.
Well, putting people in a pneumatic tube, that hasn't exactly been commonplace.
I'd like
It's
to
not like it's
deposit
a trolley
Alan in
down.
my-
Commonplace, Kevin, because it's a bad idea.
I'd like to deposit Alan in my checking account, please.
Dan and Kevin, you laugh, but go, Michael.
It's the
First New
same
York City
technology.
What?
Yep.
What is the speed of those tubes at the bank? I have no idea.
Dan,
It's
here's
not
the
very
thing.
fast.
It's been tried. Michael, first New York City subway.
I can't tell you. I just know I've heard something about this.
Yeah, it was a pneumatic tube, basically,
Yeah.
between 2 points that shoved people into it.
Well, another
That's
thing
what
also, Alan, is that's been missed in this. This is not just something that could be applied to passengers, right? They're fighting over the Keystone XL pipeline, and in the meantime, we're shipping the oil on rail cars. You could have freight. I could see Amazon getting excited about this to deliver stuff from one hub to another. To
Yeah.
quickly move stuff. I don't know what it will cost. It's all about what does it cost per pound to move stuff.
That to me sounds like a much more interesting idea. That might actually have some
Yeah, if your
appeal.
box of toilet paper gets killed in the tube, it's not as big a deal.
Oh, I don't think it's life-threatening in any way. I just think it's not going to be a pleasant ride.
I guess we'd have to get a small person and make a bank tube.
There's
I totally have to go search YouTube now. There's got to be a picture of a rodent or something in a pneumatic tube. I have to see it.
God, YouTube, okay, total ADHD moment. Vic Gandotra shared something today. It was so funny. He said, I'm glad I'm not the only one. He said, you ever sit down to watch a YouTube video and 5 hours later you're watching a video on how to speak to giraffes or something. You just go from one thing. Oh my God. So anyway, I'm excited about it, and I think it's. But any comment on my point that he just opens? He said, "I'm busy and I don't have time to do this, so I'm just going to put the plans out there." And he had his teams, work for a couple months on
I
it.
don't have time to do this, so I'm going to do this.
He
What?
said at the time that if nobody else builds a test model, he may do it.
Right, which kind of belies the fact that he's not going to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's a great guy. I think the more interesting news of his this week was what SpaceX was doing. I think that was the much more interesting news this week of his. I still really have trouble caring about the Hyperloop.
Okay. I think glass is going to have to evolve in the same way that he said that Tesla would. He said initially they'll be expensive and rare, then they'll be expensive and plentiful, and then they'll be affordable and plentiful. And that Tesla was currently at phase 2. I think glass is going to be the same way. Next up, Google opens its...
And that was actually trying to tie it to a topic? What?
I don't know.
I mean, that's I didn't know that he said that, but that's a pretty common, that's a pretty well accepted thing in the technology industry.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think nobody thought for a moment that glass was not going to be following that path.
You didn't know that Kennedy ordered the cigars before he did the embargo?
I didn't know that, no.
No shit.
No shit. Would you like to explain that to our viewers who have no idea about the conversation we had 2 days ago?
Go ahead. You do it, because it was your thing.
Basically, in talking about... Wait a minute. Why the hell are we talking... No, Dan, come back here. This is a totally off-topic subject.
Because ADD, and apparently it's contagious.
Next subject, Dan!
He's better at manipulating than you thought, huh?
Right.
I'm a leader for better or worse in this case. Okay, so next up is Google opens its domain registration service to everyone in the United States. It was initially, I guess, by invite only. It's marginally
okay.
It's
So
competitive.
I don't know anything about this. Tell me what this means. What does it translate it to regular English for me?
They're competing with GoDaddy. You can buy MichaelEllisRocks.com.
Oh.
Michael Ellis Barware.
Oh, I already have that one.
Right. So Michael Ellis MartiniGlasses.com you could get, and you'd pay $12 a year, and like all their services, they look at what is out there and they try to marginally improve on it and then offer a competing product to get in the game. So they've got a lot of things like their blogger sites and stuff that people are getting domains for, so they figured, we might as well sell them. So just like Amazon got into Amazon Web Services because they built this infrastructure internally for their own use,
Sure.
They said, well, why don't we just sell the excess? That's not really analogous, I guess, but it's $12 a year.
For them to be in this?
I'm sorry?
Is this great margin for them to be in this business?
I don't think so. I don't know what the wholesale price is, but you own the relationship, and then you also get their email address, and you can market them other products. And
It seems so easy to jump from one to another that
It sounds
and they
like
have our email addresses anyway.
It's not that easy to jump from one to another, mostly because people forget about when the registrations are due and they've got automatic renewal. But honestly, this isn't intended to... I mean, this isn't going to be a big moneymaker for anybody. Everyone ends up offering domains for free with other services.
Totally commoditized, right?
one interesting thing about this is that it might help out Blogger a little bit, although they seem to not care that much about Blogger in terms of improving it. But they have apparently some pretty good integration with Blogger, so that if you have a blog on Blogger and you just get the domain from Google, then it'll be pretty easy to have everything just merged together.
God, I wish they'd give Blogger to the Nest guy. Jesus. Wouldn't that be epic?
Why?
Ugh.
That's like saying you should give software, give iOS development to Johnny Ive, because that worked out real well.
Yeah, why? Why would you give it to the Nest guy?
I don't know. Just anybody who can make it better. But
I-
Alan likes
I-
it, I think.
Oh,
I would love to see Google Contacts go through something, some kind of new interface. That would be nice.
But they're gonna so it's $12 a year. They're gonna sell them for, and you're gonna get if you want to do private domain registration, they're going to give that away for free, which you have to pay for with most other services. You will be able to transfer email, do an auto direct. Let's say Michael Ellis had, mellis@gmail, and that's not his email. Please don't spam him. But let's say that he bought Michael Ellis realestate.com or Michael Ellis hamradiopartsstore.com, whatever, and he wanted all that to go to one email address. You are going to be able to do this, and that's something they took away before, and I'm guessing they took it away because they were anticipating this launch to make their domains more attractive. But what Alan said is accurate.
No, they took it away for security purposes.
Okay, because it was being abused?
No, because the way email is authenticated is more difficult by having it under Gmail, and having it as part of the domain registration makes it possible.
Okay. But one of the things that Alan mentioned that we all tend to have, if you've had domains for some time, you're always like, sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, like, I bought that freaking domain. I can't even remember what company I bought it from. And I don't monitor that old Yahoo or Hotmail email address anymore. And is that domain going to expire? And I had that happen to me. I lost 2 domains that way. I would love it if I could move everything to get an alert in Gmail, and with that relationship with whichever version of Google Wallet or Pay or however the hell you buy stuff with Google, and it was all consolidated. That would be very attractive to me.
Well, you can do it because, basically this just consolidates things under your Google account. Not like that's really a big deal, because if you can consolidate anything and send it to an account, it's just a matter of where you manage it.
All your domain or belong to me. Okay. All right.
It
So
could just be
domain
one less
belong to
player in your
.us.
total world.
go ahead, Michael.
It could just be one way to eliminate one more vendor in your list of vendors you have to manage.
What are
So
the
this
things?
is a way of putting one more thing under Google instead of anybody else.
I'm kind of freaked out by those things on your shoulders. What are those white things?
It's the new version of Glass.
What white things?
You've got these.
Oh no, that's my headset.
Oh, okay.
That's my Bluetooth headset.
It's freaking me out a little
Because
bit.
you guys always you rightly complain that I have an echo problem, so I'm wearing a headset. And I rightly complain that the physical headset that wires me to the computer is too restrictive. So I compromise for you, and I wear the Bluetooth headset
Excellent.
I am fully
from
under.
LG, and it's a great product.
Yeah,
I am.
I get nothing for saying that. I'm just telling you.
Michael used to be a walking Ricola commercial. Ricola.
Ricola?
Dan, I am fully understanding the level of distraction that's going on here. I'm just starting to understand.
Really?
Are you
Because
beginning-
is it that bad? Here.
Yeah,
do this.
it's horribly intrusive. I feel like I've got these 2 cameras pointed at me. What are you doing? Are you recording me? Are you recording me? What are you doing with that thing?
What the hell?
I don't know.
God. Is that a little better? Oh no, now they're peeking
How do I
out
know that?
from my collar.
Okay, so
I
next.
can't do any better than that. Sorry.
Look, I have these big, all huge around
Yeah.
the ear things. He's never said a word.
No, it was just freaking me out because he had this thing like coming out here, kind of like a.
Come on, Pam. That's because nobody's looking at your ears.
Ha!
Well, it's not like I have the thing tilted down like this or anything.
All right, next up, Google will soon unveil a new system for real-time voice translation. This is a rapid response to Skype's thing where you can be doing a thing in whatever language and you can listen to it. If it works, it's obviously a pretty badass idea. What do you think, Michael? Why don't you lead on this because you're a foreign language guy?
Well, I read the article, and I have to say I'm still unclear what it is that they're thinking of offering, because it's not clear whether the article describes Skype offering something that is real-time translation of human speech, and then proceeds to describe the Google idea as something that just deals with text. It never seems to mention actual speech. Or like you could point your camera to a sign and have it translate for you, which is not very different.
That's our next story.
This is the article that I read from this link. So,
That I thought was the next story.
so okay. So I'm going to
unless I
comment on
mixed them up.
the way I commented earlier in the week when the article or the stories started coming out about people asking, would you use an interactive translation tool rather than? So this was the question, and I thought it was insightful. Would you use a transaction tool or translation tool like this instead of going to the effort of learning a foreign language? Okay, so this translates it into a sociological problem rather than one of pure.
Okay, let me clarify. What this is this is, there's two separate things. Google did release the Google Translate app, which has some offline ability, which is cool. That's the next story. This story is
Good.
if you're watching a Google Hangout and I'm like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Daniel, soy de los Estados Unidos, and it's translating it in subtitles into English in real time to mimic the feature that was just put out by Skype. That's what this is.
Okay. All right. So I never learned that it was using subtitles in a Hangout.
I think what it is if you're if you have a Hangout with someone in China or
Yeah.
one of the
I don't know.
Castro guys.
This particular story on this is incredibly vague.
It's incredibly vague. Yeah.
I think
So, but
it's kind of
let me add to
vaporware
this.
because, like I said, it's a response to Skype putting out this ability. So they
Right.
threw
But
something up
the
against the wall.
notion of these tools is compelling because communication across language between languages is an exceptionally big barrier to commerce in the world and cultural understanding. So the natural question I think comes up, would you use it, one, instead of going to the trouble of learning to speak someone else's language? And I think it's important to answer that. Yes, certainly in commercial applications where you might need to know, in a real business setting, you might have occasion to know 20 different languages over the course of a week and have real business reasons for doing business with all those different languages. That's a phenomenal opportunity for that type of application. And yes, absolutely, people would use it. But in my view, the language learning process breaks down all kinds of cultural barriers that we want to continue to have people overcome. And so the more you know someone else's language, the more you understand the world they grew up in and the world they live in. So learning languages is a skill that we want people to continue to pursue, even though it's hard work.
Yeah, I think something like this is very, very good for someone going on their first, Belgian vacation, or, they're going to Morocco, or something like that, where you're not going to necessarily learn Moroccan, but
French.
yeah, now see, you made me lose my train of thought. So you're not necessarily going to learn the language, for your 2-week vacation.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
this
that's a very valid point.
And the truth is, even people who learn languages like Russian or Japanese or Chinese don't necessarily learn how to read it at the same pace. Those letters are quite different, and this could be very helpful for
Chinese, Japanese, Korean. I agree with you. Well, maybe not Korean because that's an alphabet, but Chinese, Japanese, definitely.
Obviously, for news, this would be fantastic. I remember I watched the Liu funeral in New York City, one of the Asian officer who got killed, and it was just gut wrenching. And I just wanted to watch it because I didn't want him to just be a statistic. I missed the Hispanic guy's funeral, but I wanted to watch. I had time to watch this, and I watched it, and it was just awful. But I wanted to get to know him better, and it was a wonderful service. And the father spoke in, I think, Cantonese, and there was no running translation, and he was weeping. It was, a real emotional thing to watch, and I really wanted to know what he was saying. And I think a couple hours later, I got a translation. But I was thinking to myself, it's 2015. This is international broadcast, and there's no guy typing stuff in, right? I thought that was crazy. So I could think of all sorts of applications.
Yeah, honestly,
Tanner, is this? Sorry.
no. Oh, what I was saying was that honestly, that was what I was thinking of this feature first. That when if you're person to person, it would seem like it would help out some, but really, the big application to me would be YouTube. If there's someone who's talking on a video, and they're talking in a different language, can I just use this app and then just run, pause it, have the person say a phrase and then pause it and then see the translation, just go through it like that and just it would to me that would be incredible in terms of just understanding news coverage in different languages. If you want to hear something that's going on in Greece or something and you don't understand Greek, you could maybe just play the video, play a phrase, and then have it translate what the person's actually talking about. I think that would be incredible.
And they're getting better at that. They're like, I can sit in my car. The other day I called. I just tested it to see if it would work. I was in my car, and my phone was off, and I said, "Okay, Google, here we go. It's doing it right." I can say,
I heard it.
"Call
Are we,
Allison." Hang on, I could say, "Call Allison." Let me start over. Sorry. But I can say. See, it won't let me stop talking now. Unlike my panel, which
Okay,
has no
Google.
problem. Okay, Google. See, now it's call Allison Duval Mobile.
Show us her
So
number.
it's going to do it. I'm going to stop it before it does it. Now it says calling Allison Duval. It's got the right number. And that is amazing. So they're getting better at this. And I just think, like, what if you had a big demonstration in a foreign country, Ferguson or whatever, and anybody in any country could watch it simultaneously with real-time live transcription without it, having to pay people to type that in. I think this is epic. This is a big
are you
deal.
guys talking about the
The first story. Let's go to the
Okay.
second story, Pam. Let's do
So
that.
that's the one I was talking about with the Chinese writing and all that stuff. So I apologize for talking
No,
about
but
the wrong thing.
they're very related, though, Pam. They really are.
This is another
Um,
PR success story from Google where we have experts here and we don't even know what the fuck is going on. And I just want to say, to vindicate myself,
Well, and-
I don't know if I'm necessarily any more ADHD than you people, because all you guys are all over the board as well. So there. So who can tell? Alan, can you anything you want to say on the previous thing, and can you intro the app thing, because I haven't played with it. I don't know, but I heard it's got mixed reviews.
I don't know. I've never played with it. I only played with the glass version of it.
And never on camera.
I actually installed that new Translate app, and I've been playing around with it today on using it on various signs, and surprisingly, at least for me, it seemed to do what it promised to do, which is that you looked at a sign and it was in German, and then I put up my phone, I pressed the button so that the screen came up, I put up my phone, and it actually did translate the sign and also use the same kind of font that it saw, and it translated it into English for me. So at least in the couple of times that I tried it today, it seemed to do what it said it was going to do, which is translate.
Yeah, I mean, I had tested this with the glass version from several months back, and it worked disturbingly well. I mean, I was even using it on a sign that had English on the top half and Spanish on the bottom half, and the bottom half would translate to almost verbatim what was showing up on top.
Yeah, I found that same experiment true too. When I went into the glass show that they had going around to different cities, and they came through Atlanta. I went to that show, and they showed it on the same glass feature there, and it worked about the same there. It was pretty amazing then, and it's pretty amazing now.
Yeah, I think the big difference is back then it was an outside company, and shortly after very shortly after you saw that demonstration, Google bought the company, and this is now the result of it. So, they've been improving the product since, probably integrating it with the Google Translate engine that they've been working on for years. I think this is powerful. This is really powerful in some amazing and interesting ways. So, for example, can you picture applying this kind of technology to a movie? so that now all of the signs in a movie
Hmm.
appear in the local language. So now you've got the audio translation going on, you've got video translation going on. That's powerful, and then do that in real time as well. So imagine looking at protesters' signs and automatically translating protesters' signs.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Wow.
That's scary. Wow, that's scary powerful.
We could add transcription to
Mm-hmm.
the Google Bus Cam protests. Some comments. Go ahead, Pam. We're all scared of Pam, just so you know.
That was Kevin, but
Oh,
I know they look a lot alike.
Okay.
They both wear glasses.
A rare Dan fail. Okay, so Wendell says Google always fails to control the message. YouTube is not a medium that mainstream media pays attention to. Google needs to reach out to mainstream media with a clear message about what is an experiment versus what is meant for the masses. They failed to do that with Glass. They have failed to do that with any of their X products. George Cozy want to promote Glass, equip the LAPD with it, and the White House Press Corps and the New York Fire Department. I could just imagine Jake Tapper with this thing on his face. Hyperloop. How about putting in a high-speed rail network first? Perhaps maglev. Maybe that's a European thing. I'm not sure. Actually,
Magnetic
It's only a
levitation.
European thing because they're the only ones that are actually doing anything with it.
But-
how about putting in like even slow speed rail? That
Elon
would be a
Musk,
vast
one of his
improvement
complaints,
over Amtrak.
and one of the reasons he wanted to do this was he said it would cost dramatically less and be much quicker than the high-speed rail project proposed to link San Francisco and Los Angeles. That was the impetus for this project. So check that out. And then Kevin Bryan has his
And
very
That's
humorous
why
comment.
he's doing it in Texas.
And the San Francisco to Los Angeles high-speed rail has broken ground. So
It's happened. Isn't it like 20
Supposedly,
billion or something?
500 billion or whatever. It's unbelievably over budget, and they keep adding more stops, and so it's going to be a 6, 7 hour, 8 hour trip anyway. So
But aren't there some great union jobs
No.
involved?
It's already an 8-hour trip. That's what it
it's
is.
an 8 hour trip by car.
An 8-hour trip by rail too.
Yeah.
Today.
So what's the advantage? And it'll probably cost
So
more
what's
for
the
a train
advantage of going
ticket
to 6 hours for $1 trillion?
because then you can have a bunch of union jobs, Michael. Come on.
Because America, that's why.
Okay, so
It's for the
anyway,
children. I know.
It's going to be really fast in between those stops. But once you get to those stops, you have to.
oh my God.
Which will then generate the power because of the screams of the passengers.
And Cy wants to know, what is it? Ratings week? Yeah, it's. I think we're up against some serious competition tonight, so it's sweeps week. Wendell says the Google Translate app can handle text and voice recognition. Any other thoughts on the whatever the hell translate stuff we just talked about? Okay. There we go. I love that AP line about a less freakish looking device. Okay, so next up, and I don't see any.
Now, Dan, you really need to stop talking about Michael's headset.
Mayday Crit says, "Why did I waste my time learning 4 languages?" Oh, this is bad news for that. What's that company that the saturation language one it's on the? They do TV ads and stuff.
Pimsleur?
The language learning company. I guess it's bad news for them. You won't need to
Rosetta.
learn languages.
Rosetta Stone.
Rosetta Stone.
Yeah,
Okay.
clearly they need to do more advertising.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Preferably
please,
in
no.
print in Virginia. All right, next up is
Spoken like a true newspaper man.
hey, Alan's whoring his book out tonight. You're pushing your language stuff. I'm gonna
I'm
drop
sorry,
a dime.
Dan, you were whoring my book out. I didn't say a word.
And I get absolutely bupkis from the language learning thing.
So there's that.
You're the only one here who stands to gain financially, Dan. Just want to say.
Okay. I'm a captain of a dying industry. Okay, so next up
Yeah,
is
that's great.
Google drops more Windows 0 days. Something's got to give. The take on this. What this is about is Google has a policy where they identify a potential security breach in the program. and Alan can correct me here. Then they alert the company, and they wait 90 days, and then they release it publicly. So if the company doesn't get their act together and fix it, then the breach is exposed without a fix after 90 days. So they did this about a week ago or so, or 10 days, whatever it was, and then they've just come out with 2 more. So on the one level, I assume this is just the latest spat between Microsoft and Google, and on the other hand, the 2 security breaches they discussed, one I think was someone might learn what your printer settings are, or some innocuous thing, and the other one might be more potentially serious. So what is the deal? Should Google be waiting here, Alan, or is this being characterized fairly? What's the story?
It's hard to say whether Google's being characterized fairly. I think Google has been very public amongst the disclosure community about what they're doing and how they're doing it. I think they're at least trying to be responsible, and there's been a large debate for years about the responsible way to handle disclosures like this. There are people who push for shorter than 90-day periods. There are people that say, look, you need to disclose it within 30 days. You need to disclose it immediately. Google's taken, I think, a balanced approach here. I think certainly if Microsoft had communicated back to Google and said, look, we know we're running out the clock on this, we need another week, maybe Google should have rigged up some way to make an exception, but I don't know if Microsoft has done that or not. Certainly they claimed after the last round, hey, we had this patch, it was all ready to be released just 2 days later, and then Google, screwed things up. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever. I have a tough time believing that Google would not wait 2 more days. That said, there's certainly a case to be made that if you don't hold a company's feet to the fire, they're not going to fix it ever. They're not going to fix it until somebody outside is shown to be exploiting it. So I think disclosure is a good thing. I think Google made a reasonably good effort here. My favorite, however, is that every time this comes up, someone then says, yeah, but Google has all of these unpatched vulnerabilities too, that they're not doing anything about. And I think that's a good counter-argument, actually. You have something to say, Kevin?
All I was going to say was that I kind of understand what Microsoft's position is on this, is that, we had this patch, and Google's just being catty about just releasing it a couple days before. But, in defense of Google, 90 days is quite a bit of time for an unresolved patch to be out there. If they didn't publish, Microsoft really might have always that answer. We were just going to put something out, 2 days later, and it could be, so Google gives them another week, and we were just going to put it out 2 days later, and they give them another week.
I think also my understanding is it's not like Google, held a press conference and made a big press release here. It's that there's this automatic disclosure system, and people check the disclosure system every so often. And this is what came up on Google's automatic system this week.
Yeah, so they just released it. I'm fine with that. Just fix your stuff, and I definitely sympathize with Microsoft. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a big, complicated system. Maybe they had a fix and they thought it worked and it just didn't work out. Okay, so fixing bugs can be really, really, really difficult sometimes. But people are getting, people need to know. So, that'll just give you some extra push to fix the bugs that are out there.
Okay, so we have a couple.
What do you think about the argument that Google should be fixing their security bugs?
It goes both ways. Go ahead. If Microsoft really wants to complain about it, just start combing through everything that's out there for Android and expose that over 90 days. Just come up with your own policy and then just show that too. The people who are going to win the most are the consumers who will get a product that's less vulnerable to attack. If you find something in Google stuff that's vulnerable, go ahead and show it, Microsoft.
Word. Game on. They could get the pawn shop guys again that did the that trolled them over the whatever the hell it was. All right, so we have some comments here. Raja Sekar. How do you pronounce it, Michael? Do you know? I don't know how to pronounce it. I apologize. And long time viewer, and I'm embarrassed
Sorry,
that I
I
can't
have no
pronounce it
idea.
correctly. It's okay. One
sorry,
thing
I
Google
can't help you
Translate
with that.
doesn't do is offer a phonetic version that we could use.
Right.
So
That would be useful.
Right. So Rajakar says Google has a 90-day security disclosure policy under which, if they happen to discover a serious security issue in any software, they give software vendors 90 days to patch their products before they publicly release. And Alan's saying that it's automated, so it just happens. So everyone knows. I'm sure Microsoft knows, especially since they got trolled just recently about this. And the other thing here is, let's see here. Sai says, why can't we all just switch over to Esperanto? George Cozy, Microsoft asked Google to wait 2 days because the fix was coming in the next patch Tuesday. Google said no, kind of a dick move on Google's part. Wendell says, George Cozy, maybe, but Microsoft already had 90 days to work on it, so how many times should Google make exceptions because Microsoft waited until the last minute?
Well, no. Let's be fair. Microsoft releases things on Patch Tuesday. That's consistent. I hadn't heard anybody actually say, though, that Microsoft went to Google and said, hey, can you hold off 2 days on this? All I heard was after the fact, Microsoft said, we had a patch ready for this coming out on Patch Tuesday.
It sounds like a failure to communicate through arrogance or incompetence or a combination of those things. Okay, so there we go. So much for Sweeps Week. Okay, Google driverless cars being built, and my phone just went off again. Being built in Livonia, which is in Detroit area of Michigan. They've got some game with cars and crime now. So this is kind of cool. They're actually going to build some prototypes, and they're dealing with conventional car manufacturers. I think they're saying 2020, we're going to see these things driving around or something. I forget the year. Maybe I'm mixing up stories here. But it's not like in 3 months we're going to see Google driverless cars on the Beltway.
I'm really hoping that the people who are building it in Detroit won't just build it to handle conditions in Southern California, that they'll take some of the know-how that they have in building cars and hopefully make it so that it could work in more difficult situations, even if the insides the car aren't ready yet to handle, snow and sleet and, and black ice and all those different things. If they could build it, more robust, that I'd be happy to hear about that.
Yeah, otherwise you've got like the equivalent of and now someone's calling me here. Oh my God, how do I stop this here? Decline. Yeah, otherwise you've got the equivalent of answer. You got the equivalent, and Alan, I'm gonna hand it over to you in a second. You got the equivalent of an electric car with a 10-mile range. I mean, if you can't handle snow, right? Because they're gonna take these things. I think in the story it said they're gonna take them to California to test them because they can't deal in the snow. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, I mean, the fact is they can't deal with snow right now. It's still a long way to go. It's, when we discussed a couple of months back about, how the car passed its driving test in Nevada, it basically passed it by dodging, so to speak, most of the possible problems. It's still early technology. It's incredibly promising technology, incredibly exciting, but it's still early technology. But, everyone's expecting to buy one next week for $1,500. Oh, wait, wrong product from Google X. But
I think this is one where the PR is still fine with it. But I'm just saying that I'm really happy. You know what? Let me say this. I am really, really, really excited to follow this kind of technology. Out of anything that Google has done, this I think is the most exciting and most revolutionary thing they could possibly do, because this could directly impact everybody's lives, and it could also significantly save a ton of lives because so many people pass away from accidents that happen on the road.
Oh my God, this is
I agree. This is more revolutionary and more important than the Hyperloop.
Yeah.
This is disabled people being able to have a car.
No,
this is
dude,
people
this
not
goes
having to
so
have.
far beyond that. It's not even funny.
It's people not having to have a car because we could just have a fleet of vehicles, just like cabs. But it's cheaper to do this than to own your own vehicle. This is cars that you don't need parking lots that are as large. I mean, this on so many levels. This is very exciting and innovative. It's a game changer. But it will take, I mean, decades before it comes to fruition totally. But yeah, I agree with you. This is by far of all the things we talked about tonight. This is by far the most revolutionary thing. I think they should start it like I guess they're going to do. We'll probably talk about this Monday. Their modular phone. They're going to do a model of that in Puerto Rico. What they should do here is find a place like a planned community or some sort of location where there are only driverless cars, maybe, and do an experiment and see, what it's like and kind of innovate. But I guess the whole point is they have to coexist, and you're at the mercy. I mean, I don't know how much they're at the mercy of connectivity. If they go through a dead zone on the internet, and then they go crazy. I don't know. It's a dangerous thing, just like the Hyperloop. Kevin's joke about they're powered by screams of the passengers. I think Alan's frozen. Oh no, he's not.
No, just bored.
Any other thoughts on this from anyone?
My favorite comment about the experience in riding in a driverless car came from a reporter, I guess about a year ago now. He said, when you first start riding in it, there's this moment of utter terror that you realize that the computer is driving the car. So you have this brief period of utter terror, then fascinated curiosity about how it's working and what it's doing, and then the rest of the trip is the most boring car ride you've ever experienced.
Well, if that's not a sales pitch, I don't know what is.
I don't know. I'd much rather boring as opposed to colliding into walls and so forth. So.
But that video they did to demo this of the blind guy being able to go to Taco Bell and eat lunch in a car.
Yeah, you know how rigged that was, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, we talked about how rigged that was at the time.
Yeah, they probably had like 50 police officers blocking off interstates and stuff. Don't kill the blind guy on television, please. All right, so next up is Google's in talks with SoftCard, the mobile payments company, formerly named ISIS. I was going to lead, but I figured people would freak out. I was going to say Google is so rich, they're literally buying ISIS. So anyway, they changed their name. So tell us, Alan, what is SoftCard and why are they buying them? And it's a shame Cadeas is not here, as you mentioned.
It's a shame Cadeas isn't here. SoftCard basically is the company that Verizon and some other,
It's the fucking bloatware on my phone.
Thank you, pal. That's a much better description.
Exactly. That is a much better.
Basically,
Certainly more to the point.
It's the company that all of the cell phone carriers created to compete against Google Wallet. And they competed successfully enough to make Google Wallet not a product, but not successfully enough to actually do anything useful. So basically, Google buying them is Google co-opting them to make sure that their product can freaking compete with Apple Pay before Apple Pay eats both their lunches.
And it's cheap, right? Aren't they? I've heard $100 million or something.
Well, considering the company itself is probably worth nothing.
Because no one uses it.
Because nobody uses it, nobody cares. The only reason why it's there was to obstruct Google. So basically, this is a bribe to the cell phone carriers to say, look, stop competing against us already. Stop being dicks. And, maybe we'll make some money for all of us if you don't fucking screw us over.
Now, this is the cell phone companies. This is not what Walmart and others are doing because they're trying to create their own thing
they're
as
just,
well, right?
they just have their heads stuck up their asses. That, whatever the hell that thing is. That's just a Charlie Foxtrot.
We hope you're enjoying our family-friendly program. Every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we bring you the latest tech news from a Google-centric view. Okay,
Very
so we're all...
eloquently put.
Absolutely, says the guy with the champagne and these gigantic ear things. If glass were earphones, Michael Ellis would be an explorer.
They're not gigantic. They're tiny. Look at this.
It just freaks me out
Glass
a little
by
bit.
Dre.
by Dre. They're
I
not
love-
huge. They're
God, I
tiny.
love-
Look at these.
I love Nate's comment.
It's freaking me out, Michael. It's freaking me out.
I'm just gonna lose it here. I'm gonna lose it a little bit.
Just a little bit.
All right, so next up is Facebook at Work is going to hit the App Store. I guess Wednesday it's supposed to hit. So what this is the problem a lot of us have had, because I tried to get my folks to use Google Plus for communication, and I use it with Craig, who runs our websites, and we have a business relationship there. But my actual like reporters and writers, the graphic layout, nobody's using Plus. I've tried. I've given it my
Wouldn't
all.
be that easy to get Craig to do it.
I mean, he uses it, but Gmail's were mainly where it's at. But there are benefits to having like a internal community where you can sort of work on a project together, that sort of thing. So Facebook is coming out with Facebook at Work. I think we've talked about this before, but this is sort of, it's close to launch day. They were dealing with some.
I point out that we talked about this before when it was known as Google Plus for apps.
No, I mean, we're talking about Facebook
Yes.
for Work. But it's smart because, I mean, every person I have on our team, like 20 people, uses Facebook. I think I'm the only one who uses Google Plus. So if you're going to create some sort of sub-community, I think this makes sense. It's a smart move by Zuckerberg.
Yeah, no, I think it's a perfectly reasonable move. I point out that all of the press that I've seen about it has been ridiculing it. Unfairly,
Really?
I think. Oh, yeah, I haven't seen any positive press about it at all.
Really, for what reason?
Because they, mock the fact that you're going to be liking, friends' business memo, your coworkers' memos and so forth, and that you're going to be playing Farmville on work time, and
Well, people do that already. Now they can do it without
now
getting
you're
caught.
doing it on the company-sanctioned Facebook.
Yeah, I love that.
So, I think it's being mocked a bit poorly. I think the biggest question in my mind, and it's because I really haven't seen an actual Facebook at Work installation, is how well it actually integrates with things that you actually need to do for work. Like share memos, have, actual conversations with people. Because most
like
people...
Excel, Word,
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
The advantage to Google's implementation of it is that Google has those products, and yet Google
Except
screwed up the
Their stuff
integration.
doesn't integrate at all.
Yeah,
You know,
well, yeah.
That's all.
No, it integrates a little bit, just badly.
It integrates as well with their own stuff as Facebook already integrates without any effort at all with Microsoft stuff.
No, because you can actually embed sheets and docs in a Google Plus post. And
But you can't share a Google Doc to a circle. You
No,
can't share. You can't
can't.
share a document to a community.
You can't. No.
You can't.
can't.
It doesn't matter if you got apps shit or not.
Right, and I've said, and you'll recall I've been saying for, well, let's see, since my third day on Google Plus, that they
Right.
should have done this, that they should be
Yes.
doing this.
I've been saying the same
Are
thing
they going to?
before we even knew each other.
I think that they would, but looking at the internal structures of the Drive permissioning system, they're not, and I don't know why they're not. I don't know why
It's
those two
such an
divisions aren't
obvious
talking to
good
each other.
idea. I can't figure out why they don't get it right away and do it.
Do they have encryption on the docs?
Not now.
Well,
So
know that?
if
Do you
if
know
I,
that,
if I
Michael?
if I create a doc, can I lock it down?
yeah.
Okay, so let me say not that I'm
relatively-
aware of.
Relatively easy. Put a password on it or something like that, so that I can't accidentally share it. And could my question be part of the reason why they haven't enabled? Could you imagine someone who's in a work community and has access to the work docs, decides to get pissed off at the company and
Okay, so that's pretty controllable right now already. So let me
It
try to
shares it.
address answer the questions you asked, a series of questions. You can certainly secure your documents down to passwords. They're to you share your document with users, and sometimes they can be groups of users if you use Google Groups. Okay, and you can share them at different levels. So I can give Pam access to edit something and Dan access to only to view things, or groups of Dans and groups of Pams can have different authorities to my document.
And additionally, I mean, there are 3 authorities. There is viewing,
Yes.
editing, and sharing. So I can let you edit it and not let you share it to anybody else.
Oh, okay, but then there's an additional one that's commenting.
Oh, that's right.
So-
There's commenting as well.
So commenting lets you, without being able to edit the document, you can actually type in comments to suggest changes to the author, or to the rest of the team, which is useful. Now, Pam, to answer your question about could somebody accidentally share company-specific stuff to the outside world, and the answer is that's quite carefully securable in Google Apps. If you have your company running on Google Apps, you can set the controls so that no documents can be shared outside the company if you want.
But
So
I'd also point out that the apps version of Google Plus lets you do the same thing. You can create circles and
Yes.
force it to create circles that are only company circles.
People inside your domain, that's right, and communities that are only inside your company. That's all correct. But you can't share
But you can't share a doc to the community.
documents inside those tools. So, then you still have to assemble, each individual user then has to assemble lists of the different relevant people that are interested in these documents,
Right.
where community is a self-selecting group of people interested in those types of things.
This is a totally idiotic fail on Google's part.
Yes, it is.
And you and I have been saying this for years now.
Yep.
And we like
And if
Google.
anyone would listen, we'd love for them to hear us. Sorry, Dan. Excuse me.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, and we're affectionate toward Google.
Well,
Yeah, we're the fanboys. Imagine what the people that hate them are saying.
No need to imagine. You can go look at all of those Glass articles.
They're located
True.
at One Microsoft Way. All the
And
the
we
trolls.
most recently had this discussion last year when we were talking about communities,
Mm-hmm.
and I made a follow-up post on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
These are not new complaints of ours.
And then Vic left the company.
No,
Is
this
there
is
a
after Vic
correlation?
left the company.
Oh, is there a correlation or not?
Well, I don't know. I've long made the argument that Vic didn't understand what he was doing. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was some of the fallout from that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he didn't really understand Docs and Drive. So here's the thing. That kind of integration needed to be pushed on a high executive level.
Oh, I completely agree.
And it was Vic's job to do that, and he didn't.
Mhm.
Instead, he went and bought photo processing. And then proceeded to botch up that, but that's another story.
Alan's really
But that-
steamed about
that's
the
an
API, I
interesting-
think.
Alan, could you summarize what you mean by he didn't understand Docs and Drive? Are you talking
No,
about?
that's not what I said. Let me be clear.
Oh, okay.
Vic didn't understand social.
Oh, okay.
Vic didn't understand his own product.
A small problem like that. Okay.
Tiny little problem like that.
Okay.
This is where I give Facebook immense credit. Zuck at least understands his product.
Yeah, I think that's true. I
He
think that's a
understands
fair thing.
Facebook reasonably well. I don't think he necessarily understands his users. Because if he
You
did,
mean
he
his
wouldn't-
people?
What?
You mean his people? They're not calling them users anymore.
Well, the suckers who use Facebook. I don't think he understands them.
The Zuckers that use Facebook?
I said
Oh,
suckers, but that's very good. Because otherwise, why would you launch the horrible search product that they launched 2 years ago? Nobody wanted that shit. Nobody uses that shit. The only people that use Facebook search are people who want to stalk other people. It's a stalker's paradise. But
Oh,
it's not
that's good
actually
to
useful.
know.
Oh,
And-
wait, okay. You mean where you could choose specifically like a school or
No, I mean where you can say, I mean where you can search for friends of mine who like short-haired dogs.
right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's
live in
stupid.
San
It doesn't
Francisco.
work.
That is
It's
the most useless piece of search possible.
Yeah. Okay.
okay. A
I
couple
mean,
comments.
there's a
Side.
place-
Go ahead.
There's a place where Google understood their what a social network is better than Facebook was, but that's about the only place that Google understood that.
Okay. Yeah.
Sai says Microsoft could just do what they always do and release a patch that breaks other things. Inexcusable Microsoft. We always permit Microsoft trolling on our program. Sai says California has an entire range of terrain, talking about driverless cars and weather. I can go surfing on Wednesday, hiking in the desert on Thursday, and skiing on Friday, and spend every
Gotta
night
be-
in my own bed.
Got a good point there.
About the
That's a really good
vastness of the
point.
I mean, I know like Florida's the same way. Well, it's all hot there, but my God.
Well, yeah, you don't have snow in Florida. You do have snow in California.
Although I wish it would snow at least once on Craig's ship just to troll him. But yeah, if you, driving from Virginia down to Miami, literally about half of the trip was inside Florida. It's such a vast state as California is, from top to bottom. I took the Stanford Owl class with Sebastian and Peter, and I have very much confidence in the future of the self-driving car, says Cy. George says Facebook at work. Workplace poking. I smell a sexual harassment situation. Except in the Netherlands, where all bets are off. Wendell, George Cozy says he understands about Patch Tuesday, but keep in mind that Microsoft had 90 days, 3 months to work on it, so it took them more than 2 months to get the patch ready and had it ready for release in the third month, but sat on it because they wanted to release it on Patch Tuesday in that third month. That's the last minute I refer to. Personally, I feel we got a little thing going on between George and Wendell. I think blows may happen. Personally, I feel that if the patch was truly ready, it should have been released. Sitting on it just so it can be released on some arbitrary schedule exposes users to risk.
But that's not fair. I mean, while I'm certainly no defender of Microsoft, those schedules are put in place and they have a lot of ripple effect throughout the organization. So they have release dates for patches for very good reason. There's all kinds of localization issues and translation issues for documentation. All that stuff has to get worked out, and it's a big job. They need a schedule like
It's
that.
also a major issue when you're talking IT departments.
Absolutely.
For companies that need to coordinate, not one or two machines, but patching thousands, tens of thousands of machines, and knowing the day that they need, they know that they're going to have to do it on Patch Tuesday.
Right.
Because once the patch is out, especially a security patch, you've essentially got minutes to get that patch into place, or you're vulnerable.
Right.
Anybody or
companies
high-risk
know-
companies?
What was that, Dan?
Anybody or high-risk companies? In other words, like my newspaper versus Goldman Sachs. Like Goldman has to launch a team of 20 people.
Anybody. Depending on the nature of the patch, a vulnerability could be launched in a distributed method that just attacks every single machine on the internet within a few hours.
Okay, two more comments and then let's move. Wendell, Cy says, went to Wendell and George. He says, I wrote a detection algorithm and patch solution for Heartbleed in about 1 hour for about 700 servers. Implementing took about 12 minutes, including the verification. So Cy's got some game. Granted, some kind of internet person helped me with the explanation and specific lines of code that needed patching, but the bug was pretty easy to see once explained, and he's still on the couch laughing at Zuckers. George Cozy, Vic may have had his faults, but he was enthusiastic about and believed in Google Plus. That's not that evident with the new regime. And I would note that Vic appeared in our program every year, and we're still hoping that the new regime will as well.
Have you even reached out to the new regime?
I've multiple times to the secretary, to him, or his assistant, whatever you call it. I'm not sure what the proper term is to avoid being misogynistic, but
See, I just walked in the door and chatted with him.
well, you didn't book him, so there.
Yeah. We're
You have a point there.
You're supposed to be the booking agent.
I
of
know.
this
I
stuff.
think you even
Is that
said
what
you were
I'm
going to book
supposed
him.
to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll agree.
Thanks, Michael.
Booking or picks where it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. Next up is
No. Let me address that one. I'll agree. There were a lot of good things about Vic. He was very enthusiastic about Google+. It's a shame that enthusiasm didn't actually translate into anything useful, but he was enthusiastic about Google+. I do think that the current the current people overseeing Google+ are similarly enthusiastic. Not in the same way, but I think to say that Bez is not enthusiastic about Google+ is to not understand Bez. And it's not to understand what the current situation with Google+ is.
I think that to be
he was
tasked
actually-
with, and then I'll go to Cadeas, to be tasked with creating a social network based in the most unlikeliest of companies to do such a thing, Google, which has always had a problem relating to non-technical people, was a monumental effort. And I think Vic did his best. I think he did a good job. And we don't know why he left to this day. That's the one thing that hasn't leaked out of Google. Go ahead, Cadeas.
I was just gonna say, remember the night before Poe's launch, he couldn't even sleep. Remember, he was writing those posts on there. He was very excited. So it's not that he's not enthusiastic about it. I mean, it's just he's different. He's a different person, so he expresses it a little differently, I would say.
Real quick, Cadeas, did you want to weigh in on Google's pending purchase of what used to be called ISIS, unfortunately for them, and is now called SoftBank? Did you have any thoughts? Because I know you're a huge Google Wallet fan, and even a bigger PayPal fan. I'm trolling Cadeas now, but I don't know if you had any thoughts on that before we move.
No, I think that's a good thing because that was a disaster. But I'm curious as to see how the integration with American Express is gonna work. I don't know if they're gonna integrate it with Google Wallet or not. And if they do, then I'm curious on the American Express thing because they're they like to control their own product. American Express does, and so it's just going to be interesting because Google kind of likes to control their things too. So I'm curious as to see what's going to come out of this.
I'm sorry, Cadeas, tell me what that's about, because that's a story I haven't heard anything about. What's American Express got to do with Google right now?
Well, SoftCard or ISIS. Basically, that's an American Express product. It was originally called Serve.
I didn't know it was American Express. Okay.
The American Express worked the deal out with the carriers, which then brought you ISIS, and then they had to change their name to SoftCard because of ISIS. And so
in Syria, yeah.
Right. So
it's like
but this
Nova problem.
Express, it was a fragmented product because American Express wanted all their stuff sandboxed, the carriers wanted all their stuff sandboxed, and so to set this process up, it was like maybe 12 or 13 steps, and it threw you from this to this. It was a horrible product. So I'm curious to see how they're going to integrate this SoftCard and if they're going to do it into Google Wallet or leave it separate. I'm curious how they're going to do that.
So now
everybody
Google,
wants their stuff.
instead of building their own horrible products, now they're going to purchase them.
Oh boy.
Oh dear. Okay, so next up, let me go to Cadeas on this first because you just got here. What are you eating? Are you eating? Looks like a rice dish of some sort,
Nah,
of noodles.
Don't answer that!
So anyway, at the Detroit Auto Show, GM has unveiled the new electric Bolt concept car. I think this is the thing that they said like 2020. So it's several years in the making, which kind of defends Google on their timeline for Glass because the Detroit put stuff. I mean, they're starting to plan stuff and test stuff like 10 years before it actually is going to hit the road. So this is a under 30 grand and about a 200-mile range electric car. And of course, everyone's like leaping, jumping over themselves to try to get into the electric car business. Cadeas, you've got an electric car. What do you think? Does this excite you?
I saw the boat at CES. I'm still on the Tesla side right now. So, I mean, it's just a personal thing. It's not no real reason.
Let me ask you one other question, and then anyone
Plus,
else
the
can weigh
Tesla
in.
gets an extra 100 miles onto the boat. So
The Roadster too. The Roadster actually exceeds a Tesla Model S now with
Right.
the upgrade. So that's pretty. But I don't think they released the cost. I assume they're charging
for Bolt or for
for the upgrade on the Roadster. I assume it's a not insignificant amount of
a
money you have to
limited
pay.
number of Roadsters.
Right?
I think it's like 2,500 Roadsters on the road. Period. So
It's kind of cool that he still looked out for them, given no financial.
right.
incentive to do
Remember
it.
his guys. Remember they have the unlimited warranty for the Tesla car. So that would cover the Roadsters.
Let me ask you something we addressed earlier, Cadeas. Elon Musk created PayPal. He launched, founded or co-founded Tesla, SpaceX, and the Hyperloop is his,
And Solar City.
and Solar City, the solar panel company that is powering the supercharging stations for the Model S. I think that the Hyperloop, if it works, is by far the biggest thing he's done. Do you agree with that, or do you think? What do you think?
It's too early to say that because it depends on what it actually does.
I think it delivers
Is
your
what-
deposit and puts it in your checking account, doesn't it?
I
That's a
wish.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna let Cadeas eat whatever he's eating because I'm not allowed to know. All right, so we saw some more Twitter accounts hacked last week. I think it was
Dan, I ate for 15 minutes on the show. You never asked me once what I was eating. So no, it's a thing with you and Cadeas.
you were off cam.
Actually, I wasn't. I was eating on the camera.
I don't know how this is,
Yeah.
this is a thing between me and Dan because I just got sucked into this.
We just
He
do it-
always asks you.
Well, he always has some dramatic thing, like some kind of sushi or something, you know.
He
One of
has
those-
usually ramen or fruit. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
how
pretty
the-
much it. Yeah.
How's that dramatic? And it's been the same for like a year.
Yeah, he's like
Dramatic, Dan, because he's in rural Virginia.
Cadeas is like 90 pounds wet, and all he eats is carbs. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's it. And it makes us hate him.
Yeah, we hate Cadeas.
Sorry,
Every-
Cadeas.
Everyone hates Cadeas. All right, so CENTCOM. This was a huge fail. So the U.S. Central Command's Twitter account was hacked, and apparently
You
they
think
were
this was
posting
bad?
war plans, and the phone numbers and email addresses of top U.S. generals affiliated with the U.S. Central Command, and so that was the original impetus for this that we teased on Monday, getting ready for sweeps week, Cy. And so now today I saw a tweet from UPI, United Press International, and it said that China had like launched a missile at the USS George Washington, and I was like, what, you know? And my Twitter feed, which is actually on this show, you can see it as it happens. It's pretty lively, and if you see someone break something, everyone else retweets it, and then Mashable rewrites it. And post it as their own thing, you know, and may or may not link to the original source. So I didn't see anything else from this. And then I started seeing stuff saying that UPI had been hacked and that the New York Post business Twitter had been hacked. So we're seeing more and more of these. And Pam posed a question, and it's a good question because I don't know the answer either. But what is the most likely scenario for someone using CENTCOM as an example? What is the most likely scenario where they would obtain the credentials to log in while at the same time, potentially, because I've heard someone else say, and I haven't done enough research to know that these were like publicly available on the internet and appeared to be a hack into CENTCOM, but may or may not have been. So I don't know. But how is this happening? Are these phishing things? And if so, explain what phishing means and tell people how to spell it.
Well, first of all, let's not use CENTCOM as an example because I can't speak to anything related to military security. But let's use any other company as an example because they're all essentially ending up doing the same thing.
The two media companies that were hacked today.
Yeah.
UPI and the New
basically,
York
what it
Post.
boils down to is it's not like Twitter security is all that robust. You're talking a login and a password, and you know what the login is because it's your screen name. So all you need to do is figure out what the password is. Also keep in mind that for just about any of these big companies, that password ends up being something that is shared between multiple people. So it's written down, it's posted in a document somewhere, it's sent around by email. It's a secret, but it's an open secret. In any of those cases, it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable by phishing somebody. It's vulnerable by finding where that password is located. It's vulnerable by any number of means. So we talk about phishing. Phishing is spelled with a PH, P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. It's basically what we used to call in the security business social engineering. convincing a person to give you something that they shouldn't give you by making them think that they should give it to you. So this could take the form of pretending you're the IT department from a company and calling up a person and saying something as stupid as, hey, this is the IT department. We're having a problem with your account. Can you please tell me your password so I can verify that we fixed the problem? You know, you think it's coming from the IT department. You trust your IT department, so of course you give them the password. Stupid thing to do.
Alan, what about this issue? My dad is retired U.S. government, and there was a scene where he got pissed off because he was in front of the safe where they had the secure stuff, and he was getting ready to open the safe, right, with his password or whatever, or the combination. And in the embassies, they would literally have a physical safe where all the secret stuff was, and it was designed so that you could destroy everything inside before in fewer minutes than it took to break into the safe. And that happened in the U.S. Embassy in Iran when they took it over. They were able to destroy all the top secret stuff before the Iranians got in.
Stan.
So anyway, a U.S. Marine guard came up to my dad and chastised him because my dad was looking at something from his wallet, a piece of paper, but what's unrelated to the combination. And the guy, was accusing my dad of writing down the combination, which you were not allowed to do. So that used to be the way it worked. You used to have your password and used it for everything. Now, like I go to my bank and they say you got to have at least one capital letter, one number, one non-conventional character like an asterisk or whatever sign. And so they make it so complex because people would have stupid passwords like their kid's name or their pet's name or the word password, as a password. And so then they got really these draconian requirements, which forces you to keep some sort of list of passwords, which makes you more vulnerable. What's the solution to this? Because it is a problem.
LastPass.
I was going to say, was there a question in there somewhere?
But then what if
'Cause
LastPass
you were all
gets
over the
hacked?
board.
What I do and what Craig does, which he said before, is I have a Google spreadsheet where I keep it all. But God,
Right.
I mean, if someone broke into that, I'd be screwed. But then there's
Yep.
two-step authentication, so at least that's another defense to prevent someone from getting, my credentials there.
And there is no solution that's going to be absolutely 100%.
Because you can't possibly
Secure.
commit to memory all these passwords. There's just no way.
That's
Especially
completely
if it's a
impossible.
legacy account that you log into every 3 years to renew your domain.
Forget it. No one's ever going to be able to do that. So you have to write them down somewhere.
And we're not getting any
It's-
younger, Michael.
And guaranteed that's the truth.
What do you think? Go ahead.
So
Michael.
you have some options. I mean, you have some options about things to do. In my view, systems like LastPass are a sensible compromise for, now I can't speak about military secrets and the way they need to secure, but for corporate secrets, by and large, I think LastPass is a sensible compromise. There's a tiny bit of risk with it, but it's small. I have two-factor authentication on my LastPass account, which means I have a YubiKey, and whenever I want to log into LastPass, I have to insert the YubiKey that I keep in my wallet and put my finger on it to type a password that lets me in, and then that opens my LastPass account. So it's
Is that like
really
a USB
two-factor
dongle, or
authentication.
can you describe physically what that is?
I can show you actually what it is. I have to get it out of my wallet.
Michael's going to show us his dongle, everyone. So
Pam, are you watching? This is important.
You're right. I'm watching. I would miss Michael's dongle.
this is the big. This is definitely sweeps week.
So, I want, just for Pam, the rest of you don't need to notice this, but for Pam, this thing is huge. It fits in, for everyone else, it fits in my wallet, but
That's in man inches. That's 8
that's
inches.
8 inches, exactly.
Yeah.
That is 8 inches.
Oh, that's
Know
funny.
So this device gets inserted into, wow, I feel like I'm giving
Here we
a sex
go
ed
again.
talk,
Yeah.
into the USB port on my Chromebook. Chromebook, it works well on a Windows machine or an Apple machine. So I put this in, and and when I put my finger on it like this, there's a little pad, a little sensor pad that knows you've put a finger on here, and when you do that, it types in some code, and it opens up your LastPass vault. So then your passwords are accessible, and it works. It works great. Now this was an additional security step we took because LastPass alone, my colleague was concerned that that wasn't secure enough. So we did this, and it's you. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there you go. Yubico is the name of the company, and this device is called a YubiKey.
And I'd point out that Google is now doing, as we discussed a few months ago, Google's now doing something similar with a similar key, except instead of opening unlocking a FastPass file, it's one of the factors in the two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've been using it since we talked about it on that show, and I love it. I swear by it.
The problem that I have with using Google for that is that everything else in my life is tied up in Google. And if Google decides one day they don't like the way I part my hair, they can shut down my account.
Yep.
And I have absolutely no recourse. I don't know Vic Condotra or anybody that replaced him or anybody above him. No one will open up my account for me, and they would destroy my life if they shut down my account. So I'm not giving them that last bit of access, which is all of my passwords. They don't get that.
Well, there's actually one of the beauties about two-factor authentication is you're not giving them any passwords at all.
No, but I wouldn't have them anymore either. If they shut down my account, I wouldn't have access to them either.
But they're not passwords. And that's part of, one of the questions Dan asked is how do we replace these passwords? Because passwords are horrible, but honestly, they're the best thing that we have.
Right. Because I'm living in the here and now.
Well, no, two-factor authentication comes close, but it's got flaws also. Biometrics are just an inexcusable
that's
disaster.
bad.
I can totally see like some mafia movie where they're cutting your finger off, and racing to the ATM before Rigo sets in, and they're gonna.
No. That's nice movies, but that's not reality. That's not the problem with biometrics.
What's the problem?
Alan,
with
are you
biometrics?
trying to tell me
They can
that
take a photo of
minority
Angela. They can take a photo of Angela Merkel's fingers when she's having a gesturing moment in a speech and reproduce her passwords because they captured her fingerprint off of a photo from 100 yards away.
Honestly, that's not the problem with biometrics. I mean, it's a problem, but it's not really what the fundamental problem with biometrics are.
What's the fundamental problem with biometrics, Alan?
Once you break the code, you can never change the password.
That's
the problem.
That's the problem. Is that somehow if when you're communicating this to the system, it's got to be in digital form in some fashion. If you can reproduce that exact digital form, you have essentially broken the password, and there's no way to change it.
And what about people with no fingers?
There are other biometric systems besides fingers.
I think when the new Apple phone that uses biometrics came out, maybe Kevin, maybe you'd like to. I think people were using all sorts of parts of their anatomy to log into their quote unquote log into their phone to test it.
Yeah, I was.
And I'm the one accused of making this a non-family friendly show?
I mean,
I
all
didn't
bets
say it out loud. I just
after-
typed it in the chat box.
after the dongle incident, it was all bets are off, So yeah. All right, if Gerwin's watching, I apologize. I have my laptop phone stuck over the panelists.
Oh my God.
I know that drives you guys crazy. Okay, next up is Marriott bows to complaints, won't seek an okay to block customers' Wi-Fi. So what this is Marriott paid a big fine because there was a convention going on and they were charging like $250 to access Marriott's internal Wi-Fi network. People who had purchased a service from the carrier to be able to create their own Wi-Fi network on their phone were blocked. with some kind of technology from Cisco, and Marriott paid the fine, but still persisted in saying that they should be allowed to do this in the interest of providing quality internet or secure internet, and not having it being interfered with by a bunch of wayward residents. In my opinion, it was absolute bullshit, complete bullshit, and this was just a play to get more money, and there's no justification for blocking this. And this is illegal, and you can't block Wi-Fi networks, you can't block cell phone signals, but
But they
although
did.
technology does exist to do that. In fact,
Right.
on a play
So
on
they
the,
can.
our
It can be
previous
done,
reference
but
to
it's not
ISIS.
legal.
Yeah, there was an article about the ISIS guy. Whenever he shows up, the head of ISIS, immediately all your cell phones stop working because they have some kind of backpack or whatever that does this. But anyway, so this is illegal in the United States, and they paid a fine, and now they've backtracked on this. Is this any noteworthy, Alan, or is this what's the deal? What are your thoughts on this? Is there
I
any
mean, it's
is there any
noteworthy
potential
because-
legitimate justification for Marriott to try to say that this is reasonable?
No, it's not reasonable. It's notable in the sense that, sanity prevailed here. But what Marriott was doing was not in any way, shape, or form reasonable.
There's no technical. You can't possibly make a case that what they were saying was in any way reasonable.
The best case that you can make is to say that idiots who, if you had a few hundred people sitting in the Moscone Center, all of whom are trying to use their personal Wi-Fi, it's not going to work. But that doesn't justify somebody. They weren't even shutting down the airwave. What they were doing is they were tricking the individual Wi-Fi systems into failing, and that's deliberately trying to shut down a legitimate system. In a sense, they were trying to hack into everybody's personal Wi-Fi systems.
Wow.
The example you cite at the Moscone Center was also famously illustrated at an Apple demonstration with Steve Jobs, where he couldn't demo whatever he was demoing because he said, I think there were like X number 100 Wi-Fi networks simultaneously operating in that room.
Right. It's a problem, but employing hacker methods to shut down systems is employing a hacker method.
So we agree that problem was not the motivation behind Marriott's decision to try to get $250.
No, they were the problem. Is the problem?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So next up, there's now a cottage industry of people hiring hackers for petty espionage. This could be getting back at your boss, getting back at your ex, whatever. And I don't know what to think about I've seen so many things about the alleged North Korean hack on Sony, alleging that it wasn't in North Korea, or that it was hired guns that North Korea employed. But I have no, intimate knowledge to say one way or the other. But is this going to be a thing where you're going to be able to go on Elance, and for a couple $100 you're going to be able to hire someone to pull the technological equivalent of delivering, your ex-wife's, 12,000 pizzas on a Thursday? Is this a thing we have to worry about? Someone being able to just willy-nilly hack you as easily as buying YouTube views?
What do you mean, are we going
Yes.
to have to worry about this?
Of course we have to worry about this. We already have to worry about this. Now, honestly, most people are not all that interesting, worthy of spending the time and energy it takes to hack someone. Because even though it's easy enough for people to do it, it's not so easy that people will do it for just any reason.
It'll be interesting to see how. Maybe I don't understand how hacking might fit in with the existing private investigator system that we have in the U.S. now. I'm not sure how that would fit in, but
What do you
it
mean
might.
by fit in?
Well, is it a tool that they can use?
Legally?
How how legal is everything a private investigator does? Is it 100% legal, or do they ever fudge it 5%?
I know they're bonded and licensed and heavily regulated in Virginia, at least. Uh, you can't just, put up a shingle and be a private eye. You've got to go through a process, and you have to take courses and get certified and have a badge, and then the armed investigators are a different level, just like security guards. Unarmed and armed security guards are two very different things. An armed security guard can literally arrest you, whereas an unarmed security guard cannot, because there's a different level of training and certification involved. So I'm not sure on a nationwide basis how that works.
Right. Okay.
It's a whole thing. So, okay, that was kind of a dud of a topic. All right, next is just saying. All right, so on second thought, getting regulated like old phone lines wouldn't be so bad. Sprint says this came out of the blue because what this is about is the FCC is considering using I think it's called Title II, Roman numeral 2, to force the broadband providers to implement so-called net neutrality, which has a variety of meanings which don't all mesh. Because, for example, Comcast is running ads about how they're legally obligated to enforce net neutrality, as Alan has noted over the last year or two. But at the same time, they're charging Netflix to get what's called a paid fast lane to be able to deliver the products that they're paying to upload and their consumers are paying to download, and now they have to pay Comcast, a third party, in order to have an unfettered lane. And President Obama personally went on and did a YouTube video advocating for the FCC to take action. And now the Congress, and my congressman is in charge of this. He's in charge of the committee that does this. And I asked him about it, and he was kind of vague. And, he said, I support the general, but we don't need more government regulation stuff. And there's an argument to be made that do we want the government regulating this? But the reason the government, that there's some public support for the government regulating it is because it's basically a monopoly in every town. And I don't know how many people, there are a percentage of people who have multiple options. If you're in a FiOS area and you have Comcast, or if you're in Texas and you've got this thing, or in Google Fiber area, and you're also have an option with Comcast, then yeah, you have competition. But for a lot of people, there is no competition. And my option is to use Comcast and get 50 down or 10 up, or to use the local telco and get 1.5 up. And some people in my county have dial-up as their only option. So the basic problem is it doesn't make sense for multiple people to deliver any kind of pipe into your house, electricity, water, and you name it. So the last mile is often a monopoly. So Alan, what are your thoughts on this, I would say, very surprising move? And do you have any speculation about why Sprint did this? And I frankly didn't even know they were a broadband player. Because locally we were Sprint, but now we're, I forget what the company's called, but they sold out, and now there's a different phone company here. I didn't know that Sprint actually provided broadband to even weigh in on this.
Well, probably because they're spiraling the drain, so they want to give themselves any chance they can to come across as good.
Was that a dig just then against Sprint?
I mean, let's put it this way. Google's come out in favor of Title II regulation, and they're a last mile provider. So I think more and more we're seeing companies saying, look, we're not going to be able to beat them, so let's join them. Let's make sure we're on the winning side so we can help write the rule instead of being the opposition. So they're going to counter everything we try to say.
What was the rationale? Do they have a vested interest, like Amazon was against sales taxes on internet stuff unless you had a physical presence, and then they switched their position because they decided to put a physical presence everywhere? I remember interviewing somebody who was an advocate for Amazon in an early version of McDermott Report, which was the predecessor of this program, and they since switched their position because now they want everyone else to pay because they're paying, because they've decided to go for fast delivery and have multiple warehouses instead of just having.
Right. I think Google and Sprint are taking this attitude because they want to help write the rules.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Mainly on the Sprint side, because a lot of these like Sprint's a wireless carrier, and so this could actually there's some laws and things can be added into that deals with wireless, and so they need to get in so then they can make sure that their wireless baby still stays kind of separate.
But I think
So I
that,
think
but Cadeas, I think that there's still a physical landline broadband provider in some markets. I think that was the impetus for this.
No,
That's-
no, I
that's what
understand
surprised
that. I
me.
understand that, but this will make sure that they can still get make sure their wireless isn't affected by this. If they can get in and be a part of the conversation as opposed to being out protesting the conversation. So if they get in, they can they have a little more control, because I mean, internet is still wireless. There's still wireless internet providers too, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile. So I mean, this could definitely affect both sides of the landline and wireless service. So yes, they do need to be a part of that conversation and at least be able to control an aspect of it.
It's insane that your internet freezes all the time, Cadeas, and you're like the richest guy here, and you live in like this fancy place and have a fancy car and stuff. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm trolling Cadeas. All right, so we all agree this is a huge PR coup for the advocates of internet neutrality, right? That Sprint would put this letter out. I mean, this is a big deal. Okay. All right, so there we go. All right, I'm gonna do comments in a moment again. This is we only have 2 more topics left. This just struck me. This is kind of a little gizmo. Speaking of dongles, as we try to do as often as we can during Sweeps Week, there's this company putting out a fully functional Windows 8.1 computer that's on a USB dongle or a HDMI dongle. So it'll plug right into your television. It's got USB ports. You can plug, a wireless or wired keyboard and mouse. It's a fully functional computer for $150 running Windows, and there's a Linux version for I think $69 or something. And this is very interesting to me. What's the practical application beyond if you're McDonald's and you want to run a menu continuously and you want to have some kind of thing that's easy to do? But what do you guys think? Have any of you looked at this at all?
Sounds
opine?
ghetto to me, Dan.
You think it's pretty ghetto? That's
It's a
touche
dig there.
just then.
My point is that the purpose of this is exactly the same purpose as a Chromebox.
It's just,
Yeah.
so it's a Chromebox for Windows or Ubuntu.
Basically, I mean, I had actually thought that we had covered something like this in the past, like over a year ago. But it's the same sort of thing. It's being able to create a nice small device that you can plug into a television set. Since if we're talking Linux, that means that it's now a hacker's delight. You can just turn it over to your kids and let them play with a computing device.
Yep. And would be relatively safe. They couldn't damage any of your data that way.
Exactly. I mean, this is a nice, cheap way to do some computing around the house. And when you start talking Internet of Things, that's a really, really nice thing to have.
Yep.
It's yet another option, which is great. We're all about options, and we may have talked about similar products, but we've done so many shows, they're all kind of merging
for
together.
the price point, it's inexpensive enough that a whole lot of Americans can purchase this.
That was the beauty of the Chromecast. I remember at my Christmas party,
Yeah.
we all had to buy a $35 thing for a party, and I got the $35 Chromecast on Amazon, I think, or wherever I bought it. And my sister.
That's probably how they chose the price limit.
Yeah, there's an impulse purchase, just like the stuff you see when you're in the checkout lane, and you've purchased your products, and then you see the Snickers bar and all the stuff that's in the checkout lane. Those things are specifically priced to be. You don't have to worry if you need the
No, I meant
chapstick,
that,
you can just get it because it's at the perfect price point. It's a no-brainer.
the price limit for your Santa grab bag was set based on the price of the Chromecast.
Absolutely.
They wanted to be sure that somebody would put one in the gift giveaway.
It was an obvious conspiracy for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so next up, and I'll do comments in a moment, but Alan, can you intro this while I depart briefly and come back? The Holder thing?
Yes, even though this was, a great story for you, but go ahead, go pee.
I gotta
Hurry
pee.
back.
I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Hurry back.
We're nothing if not honest on this program.
Yeah, we're completely straightforward here. Transparent would be too much to say about this show.
Yeah, I mean,
We don't want to see Dan,
we really don't
in
want to
all
see
glory.
Dan. Even though this is a story made for Dan. So basically, the story here is the Attorney General announced that the feds are going to be changing their policy about property disclosure and property seizure actions that have been taking place. In the past, local law enforcement agencies were empowered to use federal law to seize property involved in things like in various illegal activities, most notably drugs, but other activities as well. And the federal government would split the value of the property that was seized, usually quite favorably to the local police district as well. So police districts were encouraged to make seizures based on these civil forfeiture laws because they got, 80% of the profits from doing so, and
That's
the risk was
sequential.
fairly low. It is fairly difficult to prove that the property was not being used as part of a criminal activity, and it was seized property first, go to court later, and many people did not have the means to do so. So these are fairly. You're making a face, Michael.
Well, so does that mean they lost the property then?
Yes.
I mean, so they lose the property first and then have to go to court to get their property back.
That's
Right.
correct. So even if
Yeah.
the person themselves was never charged with a crime, and
Right.
or even if they were charged with a crime and were found not guilty of that crime, the property was seized immediately, and they would have to go through a separate process to get the property back.
And only if they could afford to go through that process could they get their property back.
Correct.
And a
the
lot of
burden-
times it was cash too,
Right.
where they straight up take your cash.
I mean,
Yeah.
when this was first put into effect in the 70s and 80s, it was aimed at seizing, boats that were used to transport drugs.
Yeah.
Was the primary use for it at the time, and since then it's been expanded both into other criminal areas and to other types of things that were seized. And yes,
Wow.
cash was the most notable one of them.
This has all kinds of huge government concerns written all over it, though.
Well, which this? The fact that it was being done, or the fact that the Attorney General has now said that the federal government is no longer going to do it?
No, the federal government didn't say they're no longer going to. What they said was they're no longer going to share the bounty that they get with the state and local officials.
Well, no. What they said is they've said the federal government is no longer going to share it with state and local officials, which have essentially now made the state and local officials have no reason to actually use the federal law to do
Right.
it anymore. So
Okay,
there's
right.
now no incentive to do this.
Let me do a
Right.
quick being the devil's advocate. I'm for
No,
this
hang on a
move.
second. Let me finish this conversation.
go
with
ahead,
Michael,
go ahead.
and
I'm
then
sorry,
You can
go
be
ahead.
devil's advocate. This is what happens when you walk away. You lose the right to talk.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead. So finish up your thinking, your thoughts, Michael.
Well, so so when I first heard this, just from what you described, it's concerning that any branch of government, regardless of level, can just come in and seize your property without what appears to me to be due process. Maybe I don't know enough about the process.
Nope, that's
but
correct. There is no due process.
It doesn't sound like due process. And in order for me to get my property back, I have to engage an attorney and spend my resources, time and money, to go get my property back, even if I have done nothing wrong and I've never been convicted of anything.
Correct.
That is an overreaching government. One more
That's-
time.
You pretty much just nailed it. Yep.
We've
Yeah,
all
it's pretty
seen the
horrific.
movie. We've all seen the movie
This
The
is one of those
Untouchables.
things that Dan likes, though.
We've all seen the movie The Untouchables with Kevin Costner and Al Capone, right? So they in that movie, Al Capone was a gangster, and they couldn't get him on being a gangster and murdering people and bootlegging and stuff. They ended
got
up
him on
getting him on
tax
taxes, right? They found an end run to get him. So that was the impetus for this sort of thing. So
But
what
it's,
they could
but it's
because
wrong,
you
dude.
have
No,
a protection.
Dan,
Hang on.
I don't think that was the impetus. I think what the impetus was that it wasn't so much that they found an end run. You know, you make the analogy is interesting. The difference, though, is that they still got him under a criminal law.
But the second part of this, Alan, and let me finish this before you intercede. The second part of this is you have protections. You are innocent until proven guilty. Your car and the cash in your car does not have those same constitutional protections. That's the end run that they found here.
That's
So
crazy.
there's an anecdote
That is
in this.
crazy.
Hang on, there's an anecdote in this story that's really good, and the Washington Post was all over this, and God bless them for doing this. But there's an anecdote in the story where there was a woman from some Hispanic country, I forget, and she was going to buy restaurant equipment for her restaurant. It may have been a man, I can't remember now. But this person, maybe a trans, I don't know. But this person was going to buy restaurant equipment for the restaurant, and the person got pulled over. And the police, what they do is there's 5 cops around you for safety, right? They overwhelm you, and then they say, like, well, let's do a search. You know, do you consent to a search? And you agree to a search, and they found the $25,000 in the car, and they seized it in like 2012 or something. And then in 2014, a jury found that she should get the money back. So she got her money back. She was able to hire a lawyer and pay the money to pay the lawyer and get the money back. But in the meantime, the restaurant had gone out of business because she didn't have any working capital because her money had been seized. So
Right. So
you're
Dan,
guilty until proven innocent. Go ahead, Alan.
well, no. What you made the argument at the beginning of this, I assume you were trying to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
saying
for
that-
this
that-
decision. I was just trying to say why,
Right,
one potential
saying that
explanation
You have
of why.
rights, saying that you have rights, but your property doesn't have rights. The reason why I think that's hogwash is because, in a sense, your property has your rights under the Sixth Amendment. And the Sixth Amendment is pretty damn clear about this point.
But this happened for 30 or 40 years, so you can argue all you want that you have these rights, but if they're not playing out, you didn't for 40
Then you don't
years,
really
and now
have
they're
them.
changing the
Then
rules.
you don't. Then I will not.
No,
I
you
will
have
not
the
sit-
right. Your government has failed to defend your rights.
Right.
Rights are rights. They are rights inherently
bottom-
given you
the
by
key
your
thing
creator.
is
They're not
that
for
if
any
they-
other reason given to you.
They pull you over, and a lot of small towns are doing this. They pull you over, and then they do a search of your car, and they intimidate you into agreeing to allow the search. Then they find there's $5,000 or whatever amount of money in your car or some valuable property, and then you have to prove that you got that through legitimate reasons, right? And you can make an argument that you should be able to prove that if you did, in fact, gain it legitimately, being the devil's advocate again. But what they were doing is they were buying luxury vehicles and stuff, and just, this was just a travesty. And against, you should be able to conduct business and do your thing and not be hassled. And if someone can provide the goods that you've done something wrong, it just goes against it. It didn't go against the letter of the law, because the letter of the law said that while you are innocent until proven guilty, your property isn't necessarily.
No, I'm sorry, Dan.
But it does go against the spirit of that
Dan,
law.
I don't know, Dan. In my mind, it does go against the letter of the law.
I think it does too.
The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses,
And
papers,
property.
and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated.
I agree with you.
That's
But-
the letter of the law.
But the fact is, this went on for 40 years or 30 years or whatever, And
Dan, just because it went on doesn't make it right.
but you know what they say, he who has the gold makes the rules, and the court system that upheld this for decades.
That's not a valid reason, Dan.
No,
I mean,
I'm on your side. I agree with you.
No,
I'm
we
just
understand,
saying
we understand that you think this is bad. We just disagree with you where you say that, it's been done, therefore, it's been done.
What's really interesting
therefore it's fine
is
to do it. It's been done, therefore it's fine to do it. No, that's not correct. It's still wrong to do it.
I think
it is
what-
wrong to
I-
do it. I'm just saying. What's
I think
interesting
what-
is your argument now is going to whether there's a class action of 40 years of seizures to be reimbursed with interest and penalties. If what you're saying is accurate, and that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different
But I
ballgame.
think that should be done.
I do too.
I do too.
I don't. I disagree with that completely.
No.
I don't think that's going to solve the problem.
So
You
now
wanna
we've
know what
gone
I think
full
will solve
circle.
the problem? Jail the congressmen who voted for the law in the first place for violating the Constitution.
Now I'm with you. Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
let's
except
pull
they're
out our guns now,
specifically
Dan.
exempt from such
I'm
jailing.
good
They
with you
can't even.
now.
You can't even get a traffic ticket on your way to vote in Congress, let alone be. In fact, they talked about what like the Edward
Oh, sure
Snowden.
you can. No, Dan, I disagree. You can easily get them in trouble for this. It's treason.
But you're exempt. You're specifically immune. In fact,
Except
they
for
just-
treason, Dan.
Except for treason, right? So if they're
Treason
intentionally
is the. I
undermining
mean,
the
you have to have two
Constitution,
witnesses,
that's
and
treason.
treason's
Yeah,
a
right.
tough row to hoe. But they talked about this
But we're-
with. No,
But
they
imagine the PR that we could get if we brought such a case.
What I think the
Were
other
you killing a senator or a congressman?
I think the great story here isn't just that Eric Holder is finally taking this action. It's also that a number of congresspeople have written to Holder saying, this is great that you're doing so,
bipartisan,
and,
I might add.
and have introduced legislation to get this off the books.
So what you're saying is that tonight we can publicly declare that Mike Ellis is on the side of Eric Holder.
That is news, if nothing else.
That is newsworthy.
This is bigger than Donglegate. This is a big deal.
Exactly. It's not
Yeah.
bigger than my dongle. It's bigger than Dongle Gate.
In man inches. Oh my God.
Okay, I think it's time to put the champagne glass away.
Thank you all for suffering through this wonderful. This was a fun episode. This was great. Any other thoughts on Donglegate or Holdergate or whatever the hell we're talking about?
We
Thank
still
you all
ask
very
people how their Google Plus week was, right?
Oh yeah. Okay, let's begin with Michael Ellis.
we used to do that.
Yeah, Michael Ellis in New York, the greater New York area. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
Really quite good. Well, not much happened for me really this week, but I've been handling things for my father's estate, as people know, and but I also was here long enough to get the couch delivered to my apartment, so I'm quite happy about that. And I had a nice dinner at a brand new French restaurant that it's not brand new, but I didn't know about it before now. So it was all good, and it was a nice week.
Awesome. New is relative.
New is relative.
Kevin Bryan, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
My Google Plus week was pretty good. I'm trying to think if there was anything unusual that happened, but not really. Just had a relaxing week. I'm looking forward to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday that's coming up on Monday, and enjoying life in general. That's
What do you
pretty much
think
it.
about the criticism about Selma?
I haven't, I haven't. Oh, you mean about their treatment of LBJ?
Oh, no, about the Oscars thing. But they weren't.
I-
They were not. I think it was nominated for 2 Oscars, and then Al Sharpton, went on a rampage on MSNBC saying that they should have gotten more Oscar nominations or that sort of thing.
Oh, it's a movie, and movies get snubbed all the time. It's a total non-issue.
Cadeas,
Um, Go ahead.
Kadeus Kalut, how was your Google Plus week? In Newport Beach, California. Is he on the phone? Is he on the
I think he's
freaking
on the phone, Dan. Yeah,
Oh
he's on
my
the phone.
God, he's on the freaking phone. Look at that. He's on the
Yeah,
phone.
he is on the phone.
He is totally
Yeah.
on the
And
phone.
he's muted us, so we don't even hear him. He doesn't hear us.
Alan
Yeah.
Furstenberg.
No, Dan, I got a question for you first.
Yes, sir.
This is related to the last question Michael mentioned.
Oh my God.
Um,
Could you hold up a whiteboard like Karl Rove uses and just
so,
write down
so
what you're
Dan,
going to say? Go ahead.
in line with the last question that you asked Kevin, does Virginia still celebrate Lee Jackson King Day, or have they changed it to Martin Luther King Day?
Honest to God, I don't know. But my best friend is a state senator, and he did a joint bill. I was his campaign manager when he ran for delegate the first time, and when he ran for city council before that in Lynchburg. And he did a bill with a fiery liberal Democratic black lady senator. She was awesome, and they got rid of the state song "Carry Me Back to Old Virginia," which was incredibly racist. It was like, I'm working for the massa and stuff like that, right? And the only way they could get it through was to make it the state song emeritus. So it was still an official state song, right? So you can still be racist and celebrate the song, but then they did a thing. And then Jimmy Dean called up Steve, the Jimmy Dean, like the sausage guy, who did Big John, the record, and asked him to come and listen to a song. And so Steve got to go to Jimmy Dean's house in Richmond and listen to a song being auditioned to be the new state song. And Steve was like, well, I don't have any authority over the new state song, but if Jimmy Dean invites you to his house, what are you going to do? You're going to go. So all that happened, which doesn't answer your question because I have no idea. But Lee
Okay, so
Jackson
while you were
King Day.
rambling on about that, I actually went and looked it up.
That was see, I intentionally did that to give you a Wikipedia break.
Um,
I'm
and it
lying
does
right
turn
now.
out-
I'm Joe Isuzu right now. Go ahead.
It does turn out that Lee Jackson King Day is no longer a holiday in Virginia. It is now two separate holidays, Lee Jackson Day and Martin Luther King Day.
Who was Lee Jackson?
Wait a minute. They celebrate both in the same state?
Yeah. Lee Jackson is actually two people.
Robert E. Lee
Oh.
and
No,
Stonewall
Robert E.
Jackson.
Okay.
Both notable Virginians. So Lee Jackson Day is now celebrated the Friday before the third Monday in January. So today apparently is Lee Jackson Day.
That's
Oh,
great.
Wow.
Let me, Alan. Happy Lee Jackson Day. I know as
No.
the Jewish
Thank
member
you
of our
very much.
panel, you're excited to, learn. Oh my God, we are in so much trouble.
Yeah.
We're gonna become a meme, I think. That's my fault for asking one of our African American panelists about the Selma snub. It's telling that he wasn't even aware of it.
Well, it's also telling that you weren't aware of the status of Lee Jackson King Day, despite the fact that you live in the Commonwealth.
I do live in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Right.
Is Kadeus available, or is he still chatting? Kadeus, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
Unmute yourself.
Man up.
Okay, so you're already broken. So
He's broken.
we can make gestures about how his week was.
Oh my
Can you hear
God,
me
what is
better
going
here?
on?
Yeah,
go
well, now
ahead,
I got you.
Kadeus, you're good now. Go
I
ahead.
don't know what happened. This mic is so annoying. What was my question? Oh, my Google Plus week. It was an interesting week. So, I mean, I'm learning about an aspect of banking that I've never knew existed. So, I'm learning a lot. So, that's really what I've been focused on. Really, the last month and a half is doing this master project with banks. And so, yeah.
Awesome. The guy who eats only carbs and weighs 90 pounds. We're very jealous. Okay,
I
so
wish
my
I-
Google Plus week was good. It was, I went to, there's a Jamaican place. The guy emailed me, and my phone just went off again because I said Google, and it's still typing in things as I say them.
Because you said okay, and it took everything else after that.
See, that's what it was. So I went to this place. It was really good. I had a buddy with me, and they had Jamaican jerk chicken, and they had chicken curry with macaroni and cheese, which apparently is a thing in Jamaica. And so we kind of split the meat. Like I said, okay, I'll get this one, you get this one, and we'll split it, and we'll try each. It was really good, and we're gonna do a story in the paper. And I love ethnic food, and so it was exciting to see that and to be able to promote them in our next paper. So other than that, it was kind of a lazy week, and finally we're getting some tech news coming out. So there you have that. So all that happened. Okay, so we have two programs. One is called Our
Hey, Dan, thanks for asking me how my Google Plus week was. I
Alan
really
Furstenberg.
Yeah.
How was your Google Plus week, sir?
It was pretty good. I mean, I was actually about to make a post yesterday about Google Glass. It was 2 years since the first announcements about the Glass API. And I was in the middle of preparing a post on that when all the news hit. So I got thrust back into the limelight again, with a lot of people asking me, what did this mean in, relation to my book.
Which you can get at what domain? O'ReillyMedia.com.
What book was that again?
That is Designing and Developing for Google Glass, written by myself and Jason Salas. You can get it at shop.o'reilly.com. You can also get it at amazon.com. If you have a local independent bookseller near you, I heartily recommend you go and ask them to order it for you, because I very fully support independent booksellers. I think they're great. And I'd love to see one of them actually sell one of my books. So in the middle of all of that, I was getting a lot of questions, and I'm still incredibly optimistic about Glass, and it's not just because I wrote a book called Designing and Developing for Google Glass. Not just because of that. So, but other than that, it's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting 2.5 months for me, just totally pounded on some projects for work that I'm slowly digging myself out of. So if you haven't seen me a lot recently, that's why. I'm glad to return to the world of the living.
Absolutely.
Welcome back.
And final comments here. Sai says one of our data centers uses vein patterns on the back of your hand. It requires a passcode as well, but in the end, to trick the system, you just need to replay the hash that is sent to the main system. Wendell says Marriott's
and that's the problem with biometric security, is that at some point something needs to be transmitted somewhere, and if you can trick that, the gig is up.
So is it just a gimmick?
No, I think it's a reasonable attempt to solve the password problem, but it's not a solution.
When those ideas were conceived of, this biometric stuff was conceived of, people really didn't think about, they hadn't really thought about yet all the different ways people would circumvent those systems.
Wendell says Marriott's action was a money grab. Plain and simple, they were essentially extorting money from their customers by creating a hostile Wi-Fi environment. There's no technical case they can make for justifying the action.
But let's be honest, it's not exactly that difficult to create a hostile Wi-Fi environment.
As demonstrated by Apple, with none other than Steve Jobs. Al Capone wasn't actually in The Untouchables. Robert De Niro is just that good an actor. Touche. And Sai adds, treason is no longer is no tougher a road as impeachment, and look how many times that has come up. Indeed. I just had a big argument with my dad, and I just want to say my mom called me tonight, and she was cooking pizza, and she said it's the first. My mom's 76, right? She said it's the first time she's ever cooked pizza from scratch from dough. So she calls me because I'm like the pizza guy in the family. And so I gave her some advice. And if there's any kind of like fire that happens in a house fire in Stevens City, I'm not in any way responsible for that. I just wanted to throw that out there. So I hope the pizza was good. Hey, thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it, especially the comments. They're awesome as always. Thanks to the panel. We have 2 programs. One is called Our Android Week. That is every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on Google Plus Week and YouTube Live. Also, we have this program, which is Google Plus Week, the longest running show on Google Plus. And that's at 8:30 Eastern, more or less, and 5:30 Pacific p.m. on Friday nights on Google Plus and YouTube Live. So we want to thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. And until next week, have a wonderful Google Plus Week.